This week, HD Moore joins us to discuss finding all the things in how vulnerability management has changed. I put that very gently. In the security news, hacking from a light bulb, reverse engineering the easy ways, detecting jitter, FCC probes into the cyber trust mark, Bluetooth jamming, new Wi-Fi Apple features. I mean, what could go wrong? Just turn off the internet for the entire country. Meta's local host tracking, hacking printers for reals this time. Are we not patching 2023 CVEs anymore? Cleaning up legacy devices, and one of the best hackers in the country is an AI bat. AI bat? AI bot, even. All that and more on this episode of Paul Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. You can't protect what you can't see. Everyone knows that, right? That's why Run Zero gives you total visibility across your internal and external attack surfaces. Worried about unknown and unmanageable devices? They got those covered too. Run Zero also helps you illuminate all types of exposures, even the elusive ones. They go beyond CVEs to tackle the hard stuff, even 0 days. No agents, no authentication, just crazy deep data about your assets and exposures that focus on the risks that actually matter, not an endless sea of CVEs. Try it free. Visit securityweekly.com/Run Zero to get started. Coming to you from not Purgatory Studios, but the Hacker Syndicate Studios. Yay! Right here in Rhode Island.
But the show notes don't say that.
No, they don't. This is Paul Security Weekly. It's episode number 880, and we're recording on Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. I'm Paul Asadorian, joined by Mr. Larry Pesce here in the Hacker Syndicate.
Is it hot in here, or is it just me?
Where it's hot. I don't know what happened.
We know what happened.
We do.
We know what happened.
Someone was lazy and didn't install the smart thermostat yet. That's what happened.
Yep.
We need to get on that. There's a whole host of people joining us remotely. Mr. Josh Marpet is here with us.
Hey, I'm in HD's hometown, but apparently won't let me come visit and haunt him. Oh,
I don't blame him.
Yeah, can you blame Mr. Lee Neely?
Hey, and I am not in Texas. I'm over in Idaho enjoying it. Although it's a little warm today, it's going to get up to about 96, but maybe not.
Oh, it's just like it is here in the studio. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us.
Good evening. Glad to be here.
Miss Mandy Logan.
Why, thank you. And I think it's funny how Sam is wearing the hoodie, I think to keep all of his hotness to himself.
I know, right? I'm just sweating. Mr. Bill Swearingen is here with us. Bill, welcome.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, the rumor is true. I am the #1 hacker, and I am an AI bot.
You got to change your title in our Riverside now. HD Moore needs no introduction. He's CEO and founder at Run Zero. Of course, did a couple things with Metasploit back in the day. Most of us know HD and his work. It is wonderful, HD, to have you here on the show. Frequently when I talk about you, I say you're the nicest person in cybersecurity. And I'll say that even in front of my friends. So keep up the great work, being an awesome person.
He has said that to me. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I see. They even corroborate my story. I'm not just blowing smoke.
Well, it's true.
HD, what's going on at Run Zero? Catch us up. I mean, because obviously most people know you from Metasploit. From what you've told me, you're not daily involved with Metasploit. Are you involved with Metasploit at all today, or just a casual observer?
No. At year 15, I was like, I need to break for a bit. So I think they finally added Python. All right, I'm out. That was the last bar for me. No, it's a great project. I love that it's continuing to do all the cool stuff. And one of the things I really missed about Metasploit is being able to work in open source all day. So one thing I'd love to talk about here is like, hey, we're actually going to get involved with open source at Run Zero finally, awesome. Which is exciting. But yeah, we're 7 years in now, if you can believe it, at Run Zero. It used to be called Rumble Network Discovery. So I'm feeling very old, but we're surviving. It's been a tumultuous economy by all means, but we have great customers, a neat product, and we're kind of going for the throat right now for vuln management. We feel like no one's really doing it right, and everyone's kind of taking their eye off, customer outcomes. And
so many places I want to go. I think most of our audience knows what Run Zero is. You have a community edition. that people can use, which I use the community edition. I think it's fabulous.
I do
Dude.
too.
I mean, it literally does. Like, you just set out on a mission, be like, I'm going to write software to find all the things, and that's. I feel like you've done that. Is that how you market it, basically?
Yeah, that's kind of where we came from. I was literally sitting around a pool with all the random hacker friends like 9 years ago coming up with the company. It was like Gordon, Fenn, Map, a bunch of the folks hanging out. And we're like, hey, IT discovery sucks. Like nobody knows what they have. Every time we go into a pen test, we keep breaking in through crap the company didn't realize they had. These are companies that can afford to hire like really expensive pen test teams, right? So why are these companies failing even though they're spending a crap ton of money on security to secure all their stuff? Well, you start looking at the ecosystem, like what are the things that are driving people to not know about those assets? Well, there's M&A, there's all the normal ghost IT asset stuff, of course. But then you also look at the licensing. Like all your vuln management products are so expensive, people can't afford to run them on their entire network. So what happens is they don't. They only run vuln scanning for 20%, 30%. And even then, those vuln scanners only do a good job if they can authenticate. So you're just getting very little out of those tools. And as a result, people are getting hacked.
And people don't.
That's kind of what
people don't want to run Nmap by themselves, right? Because if you've used Run Zero, right, it's the really nice enterprise ready dashboards, agents, the whole thing. Is that really kind of how you differentiate from like people don't want to run Nmap? They want a tool that does a lot of stuff for them, right?
Yeah, the big thing for us is like our definition of what an asset is very different than the rest of the world. Like we look at an asset as having multiple IP addresses, v4, v6, multiple host names, multiple certs, all the services, and we want to tell you what that device physically looks like just by showing it in the UI. So it's not enough to say it's running Linux 2618. Like that's what the default scanners will tell you is like, hey, it's a Linux box. Like, yeah, I know that. Everything's a Linux box these days. Is it a Roku media player? Is it a smart TV? Is it an Android? So going to the next step and actually telling you what the device physically is, I think is a really fun part for us. And it's a lot of like playing Clue when you're missing all the pieces, right? Like you have to figure out, trying to figure out what the elephant looks like when you're blind and you only have one arm. It's a fun challenge and it's just as hard as doing an exploit dev, but it's a really weird but boring outcome, which is, and now we know about your device.
So I've been a user since the Rumble days. So
me too.
And I, deployed it in my home first before I started deploying my customers. I got to tell you, so HD, while all of that stuff is what keeps bringing me back, the magic part for me, the magic part was the deployment. Like when you download the agent and it's already configured for my, it was a magical experience for me. And it truly was one of those things where I was like, the onboarding of this product, alone, I haven't even started using it yet. The onboarding alone was great, man. And I love it. I just want to tell you, man, like that was the moment for me. Yeah.
Oh, appreciate it. The funny thing is the reason the onboarding is so good is because you used to work with Metropolis and Payload. So if you want to build quality enterprise software, you have to be like defensive as heck. You can't trust any system calls. So what we do is we when you download the binary on a Windows machine, it's got an authenticated signature, but we didn't sign it then. Like we signed it a long time ago during the build process for Cloud HSM. We're still stamping and modifying the binary without breaking the signature as you download it, which is hilarious. And we stole that trick from Chrome. And the great thing about stealing it from Chrome is if you try to block us, you also block Chrome.
That's cool.
So, success.
And that's because of the way you're signing the binary?
Chrome's downloader actually embeds your downloader ID into the binary when you download it without breaking the authenticode. And it does it by putting an unauthenticated X509 attribute into the authenticode section. And we use that as a code cave where we stuff our own code signature, our own licensing data, our own tags into it.
That's pretty awesome. Brilliant.
Sneaky.
Brilliant. Yeah, but
it makes onboarding easy. You click a thing and it does the stuff, which is nice. And you don't break the.
I didn't know we were going to get technical here.
Authenticode and get the warnings.
Right, but you're right though. Going back to running Nmap, we spend a lot of time, and nothing against Fyodor and Nmap. Obviously, it's a fantastic tool, but you spend a lot of time going, what really is that device? What services are? Because it's not enumerating all the things. And that's one thing I like about Run Zero is it tells me I have ubiquity networking devices, right? Whereas most scanners and Nmap and many others will just be like, oh, you have a Linux box on there. I'm like, I have lots of Linux boxes, but those are ubiquity devices.
Yeah, another interesting bit is we make some decisions on behalf of the user. So we won't send any traffic that the device doesn't expect to see. So effectively, we're basically a passive scanner, like basically more like POF than something like an active scanner. We just happen to be the other arm of communication, but we only send traffic that would normally occur on the device anyways. So as opposed to like, doing a CNFP scan or the CNFP fingerprinting on a device where you do all the weird Christmas flags in the packets, we just send boring old traffic. We just do a really good job of fingerprinting from layer 2 all the way up. And when we do fingerprints, it's the Ethernet layer, it's a layer 3, it's the padding, it's the TTLs, MTUs, all the way up to the application stack, all looked at the same time for the fingerprint. Where Nmap's fingerprinting is very much about the TCP IP stack, we look at it from layer 2 up at the same time. So we can say, because it's TCP window size X, that means it's running, it's an IPv6 service on an Oracle Red Hat Enterprise Linux box because it's OpenSH banner, even though nothing about that tells us
Right.
what
So you built a huge,
so you can get really detailed
signature database, but you're relying on sending it normal traffic and looking at the results from that seemingly normal traffic rather than sending it weird traffic and seeing how it responds.
I mean,
the funniest hat trick is you can take a PCAP of someone else's Vuln scanner, import it into Run Zero, and we'll do a better job than their scanner will.
That's really awesome. I mean, that's really innovative because, as you know, you and I both worked in the VM space. There's a lot of R&D, but I felt like it was not focused on necessarily identifying the device. It was more about finding vulnerabilities. Finding vulnerabilities was the number one thing, finding them as accurately as possible, not necessarily enumerating what that device is. Yeah. You found an interesting gap.
I think the world's kind of changed. I mean, in the early days, you wanted to know about all your vulnerabilities, and if you missed a single vulnerability as a Vuln scanner, you failed. So what happened is the customer said, this sucks. What we want to do instead is authenticated scanning because we don't want to have any gaps in our coverage. So everyone moved to authenticated scanning, not realizing that you can only do that for, a fifth to half of your environment at best. And now you're just blind to the other half of it. So, and then now you look at how people are doing vulnerability management. They're like, oh, I have to prioritize vulnerabilities. I can't just fix all of them. The PCI just said, no, you actually got to fix all of them now. That was the most recent addition to the PCI clarification. So good luck, folks. But at the same time, people aren't fixing all of them because the list is so big. So what's happening instead is you have two kinds of vulnerabilities, things you're going to fix today and then everything else. So at the end of the day, if you're trying to build a Vuln scanner in 2025, you need to be giving people a list of what they want to fix today. And no one really cares about the rest of it because they're not going to fix it anyways.
Yeah, I only care about that. I don't care that a device on my network has 1,000 vulnerabilities. And that's what I think we've established VM was really good at, telling you about all those 1,000 vulnerabilities. I just care that I have that device and it's not on the latest version of firmware or software. And that's what just give me a list of what I haven't patched to the latest thing, right? Is that kind of what well, you're not doing Vuln scanning, are you, in the Run Zero thing? Okay.
Oh, we do that now too. So the really exciting news we have is as of 2 weeks ago, we launched an integration with Nuclei. So you can actually run Nuclei checks within Run Zero. Nuclei, for folks that aren't familiar, is a great open source project by the project discovery team, a great company as well. They're a competitor of ours, but we love them. We're happy to work with them. So we're enabling you to basically run Nuclei checks within Run Zero, but we do it a really weird way. So instead of using the Nuclei engine to say, pick what checks to run, we do the super precise fingerprinting in Run Zero first. And then we say, if this device is exactly what we think it is, then do the default login check, then do the whatever. Now, the neat thing about that is you can run through thousands of vulnerability checks and send zero extra traffic because the fingerprinting started happening before you got there. You don't need to run the check at all. So if you can basically disqualify all the possible things the device is before you run your Vuln check, you don't really have to run any of the Vuln checks. So we're looking at building out, thousands of vulnerability tests in a way that literally doesn't take any longer to scan. They're not doing anything at all because you're only running a couple per device.
Yeah, because you're building on your engine that can accurately identify it and only send it the default login for that device that we know about.
Yeah. And the best part is we can then contribute all that back to Nuclei, do more open source stuff. So I'm very excited to go work in open source.
How is it working with the Nuclei templates? It's just like is it like a JSON language from what I remember?
It was YAML, and in the early days, it made you want to poke your eyeballs out, and then it got a lot better. They've built a really good DSL. They've gotten well structured. They've cleaned them all up. So if you haven't looked at the Nuclei code in, let's say, a year and a half or so, it is wildly different than it was before and a whole lot safer than it used to be. Previously, there was cases where community templates wouldn't clean up after themselves. You leave a web shell by accident, things like that. They've gone through and audited the heck out of all of them. So they're all pretty good now. You still want to be a little careful with new templates, but it's a pretty solid engine. You can do checks in JavaScript. You can actually shell out to Ruby inside of a template if you want to. You do all kinds of crazy stuff. So with our embedding, the majority of our work is how to make it safe, not just from the sense of not crash the device, but also don't blow up our engine and make it difficult for someone to shoot their own feed off or impact their own network in a way that's dangerous for themselves.
Bill, I
was just going to say, so my history, I've been running Run Zero, like I mentioned, for a long time, but I really kind of see it as it was an asset management solution first, and then there were some vulnerabilities, and I'm aware that you guys were integrating the engine, but how does that work from from an outside perspective, right? So the way that I've been doing it, I'll deploy one or two of the agents internally, making sure that all of my subnets are covered, that we can scan that way. But I don't really get an external view of that. Is that still the way it works, or?
Oh, good news. So we silently turned on hosted external
Wow.
scanning for free for all community users. So if you want to start doing domain, it also does domain line enumeration. So just give it domain : your domain name. We'll use a giant passive DNS database. We look up all your stuff. We then scan it with a hosted cluster. We give you all the results. We take screenshots, and you don't
That's
have to do anything
incredible.
else or pay us any money for it.
You're
So
joking.
it's all on by default now. Now we have free external scanning for all community users. You can throw it at .gov if you want to. I mean, it'll annoy us eventually, but so please don't. But we don't have a lot of filters there intentionally. It's there so you can use it, and the normal community limits apply to asset count, but you have every other feature of the
Holy
product.
crud.
Yeah, I'm like concerned that not enough people are using this to discover what's in their environment, because we see breaches that are attributed to your VPN network appliances. We're going to cover a story. I think it was the Canadian telecommunications company that had a Cisco iOS XE, I think from 2023. I'm like, how do you not know that's there? Even with traditional VM, you should know that's there. But again, people are gun shy with VM, turning it loose on routers that are running your, ISP. I get that. But so what's the solution? Is it turn your product loose on everything?
I mean, in the old days, you ran your Vuln scanners to figure out what's missing in patch. In the current days, you run your Vuln scanner to figure out what you actually have at all. And it doesn't matter if there's a patch or not, because it's day one. So Cisco iOS XE vulnerability, that one in particular was horrible. So what happened was the first indication of that being public was from Cisco. Here's the advisory, and here's the IOCs for China in the same advisory. And also, no, we don't have a patch for you. So literally, here's IOCs, there's no patch, have fun, good luck. And then a month later, they finally ship a patch for it. In the meantime, though, about 10,000 new devices are being compromised and backdoored every day until the patch was created. And even then, I think the day after the patch was released, there's still 38,000 devices that were backdoored. Literally every single internet-facing Cisco iOS XE endpoint was compromised and verified as backdoored during that period of time.
I think the same thing happened with the Zixil Ike UDP vulnerability. I think if you had it on the internet, it's compromised. But what I want to get back to is there's a component that does what the industry analysts call attack surface management, right? Scanning from the outside back in. More people need to be doing this. I don't think a lot of IT teams are doing that and acting on the results.
What we heard of the hard part is the ASM tools are getting really good at saying, find me everything that looks like your company. But then when you give the result to somebody, they say, great, I don't know who owns this thing. I don't know who set it up. I don't know how it's connected. So we have this another magic trick we pulled up at Run Zero was being able to take all your data about your internal environment and figure out where it is externally without scanning your external at all. So we'll calculate a unique TLS fingerprint, SSH host key, other SMB v3, SMB2 GUID, all these unique identifiers on your internal network. And then we just scrape the entire internet and do a lookup for the key and say, yeah, your device is over there. So the great thing about that is when I tell you things are externally exposed, I can tell you exactly where it is inside too. And that saves that, okay, now whose problem is
that's
it?
An amazing tactic, right? Going to the internal devices first and then looking for their artifacts externally. I'm assuming you could use Shodan. Can you
the
Shodan?
Defenders have the data, right? Yeah, Shodan works anything. I mean, we talked about it a couple times. I've been doing briefings for a task force on it about how to use it internally. But you literally just get a list of all your RDP TLS certs internally, pop them to Shodan, and that's it. If you see those anywhere on the internet, you got a problem. And those are unique enough that you're not going to have a lot of false positives.
That's amazing. More people need to be doing this so we don't have all this stuff on the internet that gets owned. I mean, because we get to today, 2025, anyone can scan the internet. How have you done this before, right? HD, how long does it take today to scan the internet? A day?
It's about, it depends on the speed of the machine. If you just do like a super generic Z map off like a $100 a month DigitalOcean VPS, it's about 40 minutes to cover one TCP port before it starts dropping packets. Amazon's a little bit tougher, but I mean, you can crank those things up and do the whole thing in 10 seconds if you really want to flood the whole internet real quick. So, I mean, it's fast. The funny thing we're seeing now is you probably saw the news from Gray Noise earlier this week. They're seeing people doing pre-scanning for vulnerabilities before the 0-day drops. So people are now worried there's another move at 0-day because we're seeing this huge surge scanning for move it. So when a new vulnerability happens, you're not going to see attackers scanning for the vulnerability once you know about it. They already know where your stuff is when it comes out. They're just going to go after and pop all the boxes they've already found, or just go straight into Shodan to do it. So you're not going to see that recon
activity. This is like the virus total stuff. When we found out that the virus writers were using it more than anybody else.
Yeah. I used to pre-submit all of our stuff to virus total. It was great. On Metasploit, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, level the playing field. Yeah. Right.
So how often anymore are you running into devices you don't know how to fingerprint?
It's about 80% for a new industry or sector or some kind of obscure group. I can tell you, like, one of our customers is a fish farm that operates these things in the Mediterranean. And so for a while, our scans are like every other hour, they would find 0 devices, then find all the devices. We finally figured out there's a buoy spinning around out there, and if you couldn't see the shore, you get no packets. So it's things like that. And then all the pump controllers and things like that. So there's a super long tail of weird gear out there that you just only see in a few organizations. We also work with a lot of companies that manufacture the gear in the first place. So oftentimes run zero fingerprints devices even before they're commercially sold, which you have to be careful about because we don't want to like accidentally tell someone about a device. So our fingerprints tend to be more generic. We say when we write a fingerprint, it's like every type of X device in this family. And so it's a little more malleable, but it also means that we can fingerprint stuff before they're officially
It's got to be getting quick then. If that sounds like you really got it down. So
I mean, we got tons. I mean, great thing about having lots of free users, right? Is you all buy lots of cool toys, you put them in the network, and you throw run zero at them, and they're like, great.
Paul and Larry, you're running it, right? Paul and Larry are running it. That's your biggest basis of new toys is those.
Yeah, I watch their house every day. I'm kidding. No, I mean, we try not to be spooked, like Snoopy about it, but it's also very much like find me every web server we did fingerprint. Now just
how many
we weren't going to tell
fingerprints-
Larry about that flaw, remember?
Sorry.
How many fingerprints are you writing every day, do you think?
It's not that many. It's probably maybe 5 or 10, but again, they're categorical. When we do a fingerprint, it's like you do the base model and you do lots of variants at the same time. And we do it from a couple angles. So we're currently fingerprinting these little KVM things, Pi KVM, Nano KVM, Jet KVM, et cetera. And so we try to hit them from at least 5 different angles, like TLS certificate, multiple web interfaces, web title, comments, body, SH fingerprint, MDNS reflected host name. And that way, even if the user customizes the web page title, the software changes slightly, there's enough overlaps on it that you still have a really good match.
So are you looking at broadcast and multicast traffic too with the agent?
Yeah, of course we do. There's some really fun things you do with multicast where on a local segment, Run Zero can be a little noisy on a layer 2 broadcast because we have to do some MDNS beaconing, but you can find some really cool stuff. One of my favorite things we do is even if you don't tell us to scan V6, we'll find your V6 stuff anyways and pin it on top of your V4 asset. So if you scan like 192.168.0/24, all your assets will come back with all the ports the V6 size scanned to. And you didn't have to tell us to do that because we have opinions and we think you should do that. So you can turn it off, but by default, that's the idea, is that you do the broadcast scanning and you do the V6 scanning, and then you put it all together in the same asset, and it's not something optional to customers to figure out. I mean, the biggest problem we have with security tools is that most things are turned off by default, and so customers never use them.
Well, coming from the VM world, yep. That was definitely the case. So you're discovering the V6 through some kind of multicast IPv6?
Yeah. We do 8 or 9 different protocols, all pinged against the FFO2::1 and other FE80 broadcast domains. And so not just like NDP discovery of the ICMP, but we'll also throw a UDP MDNS packet at it. We'll do a TCP SYN and then cause a bunch of devices that respond back to reset ACKs. So we use all the different protocols to reflect back a response to the V6 domain. And then once we see those, we know the MAC address of the V6. Then once we scan the V4 side and ARP, we then know its MAC address and we put them together and we know the same thing.
And MDNS must be pretty noisy for you to collect devices, right? It is for what you're
awesome.
doing, right?
Like MDNS is like, yeah. Because MDNS will tell you the device name, the serial number, the user. Sometimes you can get someone's actual name. Like if you have a Mac, like I swear, like if you guys use Mac products or iOS, I hope you've changed your host name. That is the number one thing you need to do, because your default is Paul's phone, right? And everywhere you go, you're spraying MDNS. That's Paul's phone is joining the network. It's great. So like I always change mine to like my phone is called John's iPad. So if anyone's looking around, they can't see an iPad. It's like, and my laptop's called an iPhone. So you do whatever you can to kind of make it a little more annoying for somebody. But I was on vacation last year, and the hotel I was at was doing a great job of filtering broadcasts for V4, but they're allowing all V6 MDNS through across the entire hotel. So every time someone showed up, their phone was like John so-and-so connected to the network. I'm like, I know the entire guest list at this point just by looking at the MDNS domain.
I have my iPhone with emoji and the name, and that fucks with a whole bunch of stuff. For example, I bought a 2025 Toyota, and it can't render the emoji as my connected device. It just has 2 boxes. Yep.
Hooray.
Sweet. If you want to drive a developer crazy, you can set your name to be like object or to the Unicode unknown character, and then anytime they see it, they'll can't figure out what's going on and why their application is broken. It's great.
How heavily do you filter the data coming back to make sure your own tool isn't confused or crashes, right? That's a concern because you're scraping all this random, basically unstructured data.
Yeah, we have a lot of safeguards. If you scan through like a Palo Alto and has App ID enabled, or if you scan through a captive gateway, every single port, every single IP will come back on a /8. And so we do a bunch of pre-processing. We say, well, what stuff coming in is obviously garbage because there's not that many of that thing out there. So we see the same MAC address more than 1,000 times, see the same host name coming back. Like we just say, that's not good, let's throw it away. So we do all this magic kind of pre-filtering. So you can scan through the worst, horrible interception gateways ever, and it magically comes back clean in the UI because we know what they are and we fix them. And that's the hard part, right? If you're writing a scanner and you're like, wow, how does someone solve these problems? You just find every possible case and fix them, including things like looking at the MTU, window size, banners, doing multi-port stuff. Like it's a huge pain in the ass. We probably spend 5% of our time working through devices that mangle
Sounds
traffic.
like you got pretty good sized team going there. How big is it?
Yeah, we're almost
Holy cow,
almost 80
that's
people
cool.
now. Like a real company. It's crazy. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I didn't want to accuse you of having a real company. I mean, that might be considered rude in some contexts. But congrats, man. That's very cool.
I try to appreciate it, and I still get to work all night on the code and then do boring meetings all day. So it's an okay trade-off.
So like not much has changed since
Definitely a vampire.
7 days, right?
Yeah.
Till we get that HD AI bot to extend the meetings for you.
I'm probably the least fan of AI stuff you can imagine. We're still trying to figure out like where it's helpful in the product, and so far, I think our own software tends to be smarter than what
good for
LLMs
you. We're not just jumping on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah. I was just thinking of how to get out of the meeting part of your life. That's all.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. No, I mean they're important, right? Like you can't just write code all the time.
Do you detect honeypots HD?
We do, but we're really careful about not narking them out in a lot of ways. Like I can tell you in 10 seconds if
sure,
it's
that's the most common.
not.
Yeah,
like,
it's the most common.
Same thing with any of the other, all the little like low interaction honeypots, the kippos, et cetera. They're super trivial to find. What you'll notice is close your ears, Haroon. But if you look at the TCP/IP stack, it doesn't match the application layer. So if you see a TCP window size of 28860 on a Windows IIS box, or the TTL,
I mean, come on. I mean, everyone knows
little
that.
things like that.
You know.
But we eat and breathe this stuff all day, so you just like stare at the output and run zero. Like, yeah, this is definitely not a Linux box, or it's definitely not a Windows server.
The attackers aren't scrutinizing the traffic to that level.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking about this last week. I think the honeypot thing is, and even if you can detect it in 10 seconds HD, I think the most important thing, if you're going to be using that strategy, is have it alert by the time somebody figures out it's a honeypot, right? Like, and so like if you're out there and you're screwing with a Samba server and you're starting to interrogate it enough, I think that's enough to alert, say, hey, that shouldn't be happening, right? And so whether you catch it or not, like let the security team like make them aware, right? I don't know. I just
Absolutely. Like you wouldn't think our job is to look, there's honeypots everywhere. Like, who cares, right? Just same thing when someone spoofs a response and we fingerprint the wrong thing. It's like, okay, but you intended for that to be fingerprinted correctly. Of course, we're going to do that. So we're not trying to, not even, most of the devices you talk to are not trying to lie to you. And that's what we
my burning question is about VM HD. Do people get rid of their vulnerability management suite today? And if the answer is yes, what are we replacing it with? Other than run zero, but that's a given, right? But what's the strategy? What are your thoughts on it?
It's gnarly. I mean, like our view of the world is that you're going to be doing most of your vuln management with an agent long term, just because vuln management scanners have gone so bad. They're kind of irrecoverable at this point for doing full-blown patch audits remotely. You're just not going to get there. So what we're seeing now is that all the EDR companies are getting into the game of doing vuln management.
Yep.
SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, Defender, et cetera. And they're going in there and saying, you don't need your X scanner anymore because you can just use our agent and our not particularly good vuln management, but it's good enough to pass your audit. So we're seeing a lot of folks moving to EDRs for their agent-based vuln management, but then you're missing the entire network context. And unfortunately, the legacy VM scanners, I'm sorry to call them legacy, but they're also not particularly good at the network scanning side anymore because they've focused so much on authentication. So if you look at like what are the percentage of checks in all the major scan engines that are remote unauthenticated, it's like between 5 and 15% of the total. Like you're just getting so little value from those checks right now. And even then, a lot of them are turned off by default. If you don't enable thorough mode, paranoid mode, whatever, you're not going to get the check you think you're getting. So the challenge is like, I think the vuln scanners, like they're all now moving to the more of the legacy scanning companies have all moved into other markets, right? Rapid7 seems very intent in doing like IDR stuff, like incident response, managed response bits. Look at Tenable, they're doing all exposure management stuff. They're doing a lot of things like cloud security, data aggregation, the Vuln acquisition. Like no one really cares about poor old Vuln scanning anymore, right? So our take in the world is like agents are going to be how people do their patch detection. And so we're not going to worry about patch detection. We feel like you probably have auto updates or you're probably an agent. We shouldn't have to think about that. You don't want to hear it from us that you're missing your patch. That's not what we can do that's useful. What we can do instead is find all the network stuff that nothing else knows about that you can't run an agent on, that's off in the corner of the network you never saw before, that you can only detect remote unauthenticated. And that's where we provide the most value. So we feel like if you already have an agent-based phone management, whether it's your Tenable or your CrowdStrike, you plug that in with Run Zero on the network side and you get a fantastic kind of peanut butter jelly approach to the network.
I want to ask you about default and weak credentials, because this is a problem that I think it's interesting. It traces back in my career, back when I was at university like 20 years ago. And I was like, I knew we had both default credentials, but also the credential that the team used when they were building the network like a generation ago. And that password, I'm like, what's the password for this device? And they're like, oh, it's like XYZ, whatever it is. And I'm like, you guys used that a lot back in the day and it's still here. I'm like, we should probably have something that looks specifically for that credential in addition to default credentials, which tend to come back if you do a firmware update or restore from backup, or there's a couple other scenarios there. So how do we get better at doing this and enabling people to feel the confidence to be able to do it in their network, right? Because I feel like they're like, oh, I can't do that because something might roll over and play dead.
It's tough. We just rolled out default login checks in Run Zero that are based on nuclei templates. We covered about 180 of them by default that we think are safe to run. And you can still trigger lockouts. Tomcat will lock you out these days. Like Crush FTP will lock you out. I mean, temporarily, but it's still super annoying. I was running one Vuln scanner on my network and actually locked out my other Vuln scanner's login. Had to go unlock the admin account again. It's silly. But the solution to all of our problems is to make all your device manufacturers live in California. So California made default logins illegal, which is hilarious. So that means when you buy a Super Micro, it has a little pull tab out that you look at the serial number, and that's the only way to get into the IBMI side of it. But the funny part about this is there's a more recent, the slight older vulnerability, but it was like the AMI Mega Rack, basically BMC, a vulnerability.
I think that was us. Yeah, that was Vlad. That was Vlad. Anytime we want to chat with Vlad, dude, I can hook you guys up. You guys have a great time.
Okay. Yeah, that was such a cool bug because like what y'all did is you, because the passwords are randomized and they're driven by the serial number, you guys just found a way to leak the serial number and then calculate the password.
Which is another article of someone doing that on another device. I forget which one, but there's another one that's like the exact same technique.
HP ILO maybe. I think the ILO cards are serial number based too.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's that kind of stuff. So I think we're moving to a world where everything's kind of burned into the factory and you don't have those kind of defaults anymore. But even the dumb little nano KVM things here, they still ship with default passwords because, California has gotten to the end.
I mean, should that be a United States law? Should it be an EU law that you can't ship a device with a default password? That might help. Would it help? I mean, it's not going to hurt, right? I don't think so.
Yeah. Seems useful. At least then you need another bug to leak out the serial number, and occasionally you have to stick a little pull tab on your server when you're setting it up. But I mean, for me, like it wasn't that annoying to get a bunch of servers. Why had to go yank a little plastic tab out to figure out what to log in with? So I think it's probably the future is just not to have default logins. But it doesn't matter what we tell people to do. Every web app still has a default login, right? Like you can still watch certificate transparency tail and watch people setting up WordPress boxes in real time and just log in with them. Like it's terrible.
I feel like there still needs to be a continuous process that looks for credentials, default credentials, weak credentials, known credentials, because we have so much infrastructure and all these little devices and big devices everywhere. We just can't keep tabs on it, and an attacker is going to find that right away. I feel like a lot of times the initial access vector when we don't know is probably a credential, right?
Yeah, and these are the best kind, right? Like my favorite pen test ever is when I walked up to the front door of the bank and opened the door with my phone. And they're like, how'd you do that? I'm like, well, I got an interpreter port for it to your Access door controller, which has a default login of Access. So I just opened the door from the button. Like it's a port for it. It's not exciting. And it's just dumb bugs like that. They're great. We have a customer that's the public education for an entire state. And they just finished doing the default login audit for one of their districts, and they found tons of these little HVAC controllers. And like, yep, default login on those. Like, it's all across the board, and it's definitely devices that your IT team doesn't
that was
know
me
about.
in a pen test once. It was a BMC, it was an ILO or DRAC or something like that. Had a default password, logged in, poked around the web interface, and it goes, "Oh, do you want like terminal console access?" I'm like, "Yeah, yes, please." And then I had a root shell, and then like my contact comes over, and it's like 5 minutes in the pen test. He's like, "You're sitting at a root shell." He's like, "That's probably bad for us, huh?" Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite attack for the BMCs is what we call like the $75 attack for Dells. Before Dell iTrack 7 or 8,
Calvin.
the default password is root Calvin.
Calvin.
The problem is, but when you log in with root Calvin, if the system hadn't bought the license for the KVM, you didn't get KVM functionality. You couldn't do anything from the login. And you're like, I have a login, but I can't take over your server. So you literally go on eBay, spend $75 for an aftermarket license. You actually get the license, but then you own the server.
It's hilarious.
I mean, you talk about those default passwords, Paul. Like the first pen test you and I ever worked on together was against what? Is it AIX?
It was AIX.
AIX.
It was AIX.
And the operator account was their default username and password. And as part of the menuing system, changed user password. And hey, can we change the password for root? Yep. Thanks.
And it is the safest way to be in the system because you're just logging in.
Hey, Scott Tiger will never die.
There's the danger to that there.
Oh, but also there's dangerous things too. Were you saying before HD that there was a Lantronix device that just because there was so much ARP traffic generated by Run Zero, it would fall over?
Yeah, you have to predict not just the traffic you're sending, but the traffic that you're generating. So if you're scanning a remote subnet and you're hitting 500 IPs in the same /22, you have to realize that the edge router is now sending 3 ARP requests for every IP. So now you've just sent 750 requests every 3 seconds to the remote subnet, even though you're really only sending a fraction of that traffic yourself. And that causes the broadcast storm that affects devices like Lantronix, the Zebra printers for warehousing. That's an example of devices affected by it. So it's kind of annoying. Like when you're doing this kind of network scanning, you have to predict the second order effects of all your traffic.
Awesome.
Well, they don't tell us much, which is probably a good thing. But we do have a lot of folks saying the Section 899 equipment is probably the easiest one that we do and the most common one. Like we're working with a defense contractor and they manage bases overseas and places where there's lots of missiles falling. And they were freaking out. They're like, I had to go in front of a judge soon. I'm like, why? It's like, well, you're telling us we've got a Huawei device for lab and we cannot find it. We've torn apart everything in the lab. We've rebuilt it. I'm like, we think Run Zero is broken. I'm like, no, it's showing literally in your printer SNP's ARP cache. There is a Huawei device in that building somewhere. And so they're freaking hell out. A month goes by. They finally realize it was the P600 series phone in the text pocket the entire time.
Yeah, interesting.
So poor guy ripped apart the whole network and he was the problem. Like
the call is coming from inside the house.
I was just coming off mute to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like when I'm looking for my glasses and they're on top
I don't
of my
know
head,
how much
right?
trust I have in this tech anymore. I can't find the Huawei device anywhere. I don't know where I've looked all over for this thing. I can't find Yeah.
Oh, just wait. Think about when that guy is training the next FNG, what he's going to ask him to locate.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good example. Like, because we weren't scanning the subnet directly, but we were able to scan the printer and dump its ARP cache. That's where we saw this Huawei Mac in the cache of we basically indirect detection of the Mac that way. And so it's stuff like that that's like so hard to find. And we just tell people, I think what I like about that is we help someone understand what they didn't know. It wasn't just our tools saying, we know the whole world, here you go. Like we're very upfront about here's things that we just don't know very well. Here's a subnet that we know that's probably there, but we couldn't scan, or a VLAN that's hinted at, but we can't get to. And it's like telling people about all the things that are missing is also things security tools are bad at. They never want to admit defeat or admit lack of knowledge.
Right.
But that's how you
So
fix things.
I don't know how much we're, we might be running out of time. Paul, that's your deal. But I'm curious about the community edition HD. So I know you've mentioned it a couple of times. You're adding more features and all those kind of things. But, as somebody who just cherishes the community edition, right? Like, what's the future of that? And how does that play into kind of the strategy for Run Zero?
The short version is everything that's in the commercial version ships right out to community same day. And so when we put default login checks, the nuclei integration, that's in community too. Have fun. Like eventually you'll be able to just upload your own nuclei templates and run it in community too. Like we're not charging extra for it. We're not trying to gate it by, tiers. We feel like, asset count is probably the best way to do it. And if that isn't at some point, we'll find a better way to do it. But, the community is super important to me. Like I hate talking about a product that people can't just go download and use on their home network. Like, I feel like if you're a commercial vendor and you're saying, talk to my sales guy first, and then, we'll do a POC, then you can finally see the product. Like, no, how about you go try it first and then tell me if you're still interested afterwards.
So
and not waste
knowing that you were
time.
going to be on the podcast today, over the weekend, I went out to the Run Zero. So, I've been there. I use it all the time, but I wanted to see like, okay, what's the difference between the professional version and the community version? And I love your guys' page because it's like included. I mean, it's the same checkbox all the way down. I think it's hilarious. It's cool.
Yeah, people do love that. Tailscale is another product that does the same thing. I love Tailscale. It makes VPN and connecting my network so easy. Like, yes, could I do it myself? But I'm like, oh my God, they make it so easy. And it's free for like 5 users and 100 devices, which is, it's perfect. And the community edition in Run Zero is limited to what? It's a device limit?
It's 100 devices unless you email me and be, hey, I've got way too many things in my house. Help. But yeah, mostly it's 100. It's 100 by default, but we bump it up a little bit for folks.
HD, I was thinking about your problem locating devices. Have you considered implementing something like time domain reflectometry? Because from the network traffic, you can tell where something is, and you can also tell whether it's static or moving.
That's a good point. We haven't done anything really to especially moving, right? Something that I'd like to do is kind of move to the time domain for Run Zero monitoring. A lot of things we do right now are just kind of like a snapshot every so often, right? And there's some really cool things you can do with that. Like you can see have the S&P V3 counters changed since the last time I did a scan. If so, something else is scanning it. Have the SMB2 session IDs incremented by more than X. Okay, this is an active server, not an other server. But what if we did that in real time across the whole network? What if we turned all the cool information leaks we have into a full-on network-wide monitoring system to tell you what things are busy, what things aren't? And like Sam said, tell you when a device is moving or otherwise in a different spot of the network than you expect it to be. I think it'd be fantastic, a lot of fun to do. But there's a million things we want to do right now, and someday I'm going to do the time domain one. But just got to find time for it.
Is that just basing it on round trip time to see if it moved?
Yeah, round trip time, but you can also look at things like jitter over time. One of my favorite tricks for finding a wireless device is just look for everything in your network with more than a 10 millisecond ping time. If you're looking at embedded devices, even better. Anything less than 1 millisecond is generally an Intel CPU or a fast ARM. Anything more than 1 millisecond is probably a janky little device you really don't want on your network. So you can find all your IoT devices just by looking for slightly longer ping time at the network level.
That's awesome. Well, H, we could talk forever, but unfortunately, we have to end the interview portion of the show and discuss the news. You're more than welcome to stay, but obviously you're busy, so I'll let you.
Got KVMs to hack.
Offline. You got KVMs to hack, so offline.
Yes,
you
definitely.
can make that decision. But HD, was great having you on the show. Awesome talking with you. Love the tech. Love what you guys are doing. So keep it up.
Seriously.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Appreciate it. And I'll jump on the live stream here and watch you guys.
Thanks, HD.
Thanks.
Pleasure,
Good luck,
man.
bud.
Good seeing you. Take care.
Yeah.
Your company runs on Google Workspace, but it's an afterthought for most security tools. Material Security is the first and only platform purpose-built to protect Google Workspace, securing email, data, and user accounts from advanced threats. From blocking sophisticated phishing attacks in Gmail to preventing unauthorized app usage and fixing risky file sharing in G Drive, Material continuously protects your data. Don't settle for second best. Protect Google Workspace with Material Security. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Material Security. And now, the security news.
Hello.
Are you ready?
Hello.
Is everyone ready?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I can't hear you.
Positively.
Did you guys see my story about the light bulb hacking toolkit? This person turns light bulbs into hacking devices. It's pretty awesome. It's my story number 3.
What light bulb is this?
So there's a bunch of different ones.
Okay.
So there's 3 different models, and they run
ESP32C3.
I was going to say didn't want to get my stories confused, but yeah, this one he shows flashing in ESP32C3. That's in the light bulb. He has all the pictures of the. I don't know if he's not putting them in there. This is already in there. It's the ESP32 that powers the light bulb.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how they get on the Wi-Fi. How they do the control for all the.
Oh, so he specifically
change.
searched Amazon for ESP32 chips that are in smart light bulbs.
And specifically stumbled across the Vuln Smart Light Pro,
Hacker Nightlight.
the Vuln Color SLB04, and
they're
2 and 1.
Vulnerable to just putting different firmware on the ESP32 chip because they don't use firmware encryption or secure boot.
Yep. Oh, and also he mentioned, it looks like it mentions up somewhere at the GitHub repository something about Govee light bulbs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like Govee is super popular, and yeah, I just bought 2 Govee products the other day, and yeah, we've seen that quite a bit.
Oh, I didn't know you could do this. So in this one, this other one, using a $7 USB TTL on Amazon, he connects the TX and RX together, and grounding the I09 on the light bulb PCB sets it into bootloader mode. And that's how it's able to put new firmware on it. That's a neat trick.
Damn.
I like it. Because then, you're on a pen test and you swap it on a light bulb. You pretend you're in maintenance, and then there's like a web. Yeah, this is the web interface he's got for it. And he can launch attacks.
Does a light bulb still work when he's changed the firmware?
Yeah, to change the colors on the light, scroll down to the light control page.
Yeah, he's got a light control page on it too. So he's controlling the light bulb portion of it, the actual functionality in the ESP32. I haven't looked at his code yet, but...
Well, I got to tell you, so as somebody who has a lot of ESP32s that sometimes are on my network and sometimes not, in my run 0, I see like ESP all the time, and I'm always going and chasing them down. And I've found some light bulbs I didn't even know were like
ESP32s.
Yeah, I didn't even know they were on my network, to be quite honest. Like, they're not supposed to be on that network. They're supposed to be on that one over there,
I had one of those moments yesterday, Bill, that I was putting a device on my network to get some data out of, and I needed to set static DHCP so I could create some firewall rules and all this type of stuff. And I looked at my DHCP table, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm almost out of pool space.
Whoa.
Because 101 allocations in the pool, and 88 of them were being used.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell? What do I have?
You're almost ready to have to send HD an email and say, can I have more than 100 devices on my Run Zero Community Edition?
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, how many of them are active and how many were just cache waiting to expire?
Oh, they were all active.
Shit.
Yeah, so all but 2 were noted to be active, because pfSense gives you sort of the state as to whether it's green or inactive.
50 of them were cheap yellow displays.
No, most of them were the lights and the cameras, and the Amazon switches.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Speaking of hardware stuff, there's a really awesome ESP32 Bluetooth jammer. Now, just throwing this out here, you're violating FCC regulations.
Are you?
Or are you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Larry,
are you?
Tell us, Larry, are you?
Larry's our resident Wi-Fi hacker and Bluetooth hacker and attorney, all in one.
Yeah, well, so it says right in the article, jamming is illegal. But are they actually doing jamming, or are they actually doing protocol manipulation? It says the 2.4 gigahertz broadband. Well, that's not the right word of broadband, but okay.
Well, I've got an idea. Let's clone this repo. Every time they say jamming, we say protocol, whatever you just said, Larry. We say protocol, and then we build it, manipulation, and then we build it, and if we get in trouble, we're like, the repo I downloaded
Larry says.
No, the repo I downloaded from mine, I guess, says protocol manipulation. This wasn't jamming. Quite honestly, that thing looks fucking dope, and I want one. And
that's what I said.
Right.
The exact same thing when I saw this. Those exact words went through my mind, Bill, in your voice, ironically enough.
Right. And we always read these things, and we've talked about this when you're at the pool or something, and somebody's playing country music, and you're like, I wish that thing wasn't playing country music. You can just turn this thing on, and the speaker stops. Done.
Yeah, as well as anything else in the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum.
Listen, you're at the pool, right? You don't need
put your phone down.
That's
Because
right.
your smartphone, RC drones, IoT devices, smart gadgets, wireless keyboards and mice, and everything else. Light bulbs.
All right, so I want one of these too, Paul. Like, this thing's cool.
Okay, so not only is it using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth low energy, it is using where did it go? The Nordic NRF 24.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is he? Well, but you just have to solder one of those on the board, I would imagine, because he made this PCB to solder on an ESP32 right there in the
and
middle.
some expansions for those,
and then he's got things on either side.
Yep, those are the NRF 24s.
So dual NRF 24s. Hence how many antennas does this thing have on it? Three. Yeah. So one for each NRF and one for the ESP32. That's slick. He did a nice job designing this thing. Oh, now that I see that, I've seen someone do the ridiculous video about this, and now I'm like, I found where I can actually build one. Because I get really frustrated that my Instagram feed, among other things, has lots of hacking electronics projects in it. And most often it's just someone with techno music that's holding up like one of these devices. And this picture right here is the one I remember seeing, because there's a Flipper Zero in the background, one of these devices.
Yep.
And he's like, look what I can do. I've got this thing. And all the comments are like, well, what is that thing? How do I build one? How do I get one? And there's no responses to any of the comments. And I'm not sure if it's just like posturing to get more, because the more comments you get, I see a lot of videos that are basically just baiting people into making comments.
Yeah.
So I was excited when I found this, because I'm like, I can build this if I want to now. And when I post a video, I'll actually tell people where you can find the stuff to build it, because that's what you should do. That was my rant about this story.
Very good.
It was all those. Yeah.
How do we get the parts? Like, looks like, does he sell
you
these?
just you order them on AliExpress. This might have been the one that I
don't think
clicked
so.
on, and there was 404s. One of them I was clicking on, there was 404s to AliExpress.
Well,
but
I don't think
mean,
you're going to be able to order the 3D printed case on AliExpress.
No, that I can print myself. That's fine.
Well, the
Cases
PC
are easy to
board,
print.
it looks like there's a Dawn and Non-Tech shop, datatechlabs.com.
Well, you can just go to PCBWay. And some of them are on the PCBWay. You can just have it printed.
Oh, so if you go to datatechlabs.com, they have the blue ESP for $53.99. It's currently sold out.
Oh,
this is just the board. Just the PCB he designed is $19.99.
Yeah, that
so
one
you
has
can order.
That one has the ESP32 already soldered on board, it looks like.
Oh, one of them has it already soldered on. Yeah.
But it's missing the two other ones, it looks like.
The NRFs.
The NRF 24s. Yeah. But those they just plug in. So
Well, I
probably have those sitting in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, me too. Hey, why don't you?
The stuff are all on AliExpress.
Why don't you send me one?
Even the
we should all just like get together and bring all our gadgets and just solder together a whole bunch of like really cool stuff.
You'd have to come to my house. I can't bring all my gadgets.
I know, right?
Because I ordered more gadgets today.
Yeah, I did. Well, but now we're just marching down Paul's hardware. So this one I did order. This one I ordered.
Which one?
The Raspberry Jack. Raspberry Jack. I ordered the stuff for it. So this is competition for the USB, the Shark. Isn't it the Shark what Hack 5 calls it?
Shark Jack?
Shark Jack, thank you. So this is an open source Shark Jack. So it's WaveShare 1.44 inch LCD hat, which came in. A Raspberry Pi 02WH. Raspberry Pi 0.
Yep.
What's the H stand for?
What's it do?
It does Shark Jack stuff.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know. It's a now I gotta look up the Shark
It's
Jack.
at the top. It's at the very top.
Is it at the top?
It does customizable in-map scanning, one-click reverse shell with IP selection or pre-configured IP. Oh, it does creds capture like responder and
ARPman in the middle, DNS spoofing.
It's kind of like a Linux USB dongle that does hacking stuff.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that what the Shark Jack does?
Oh, so then you connect it via USB, like a network port or Ethernet port?
The Shark Jack is a hot plug Ethernet jack. I'm not sure how that gets power.
Probably might get in the back. There's like a USB plug.
Yep.
Most of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, because they've got the cable version.
So I guess you would plug this into a network jack, and then you'd provide it power, and then it would do in-map scanning or responder.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
They have one that's cordless battery powered. So they have one that's battery powered. That's pretty cool. But the Shark Jack is
Shark Jack.
$120, and you can build the other one for like, I don't know, $50, maybe less.
Do it. Build the other
Here's
one.
the thing, but no,
Right?
Here's,
Like,
here's
why not?
always the thing. You can build it. You got to buy the parts. You got to wait for them to come in. You got to spend some time configuring it. So there is a little.
No,
bit
there's
trade-off.
value. I'm not saying there's not value to the Hack 5 thing. Like, I just think it's fun to build the open source versions
yeah.
of the Hack 5 thing, but like
yeah.
the Hack 5 thing is awesome too. Like,
yeah.
What's
Yeah,
the
no,
hack? What's the Hack 5 thing?
The Shark
Jack.
Shark Jack. Oh God, sorry I brought that up.
Come on, Hat, lean in.
Well, that's funny.
Oh boy. All right. Was that all my hardware hacking stuff?
Oh, what was the printer one for reals this time?
Oh, printer for reals.
Hacking printers for reals. Is it the brother printer?
Yeah, Rapid7. So the article reads, Rapid7 conducted a 0-day research project into multifunction printers, which just sounds like fun. From Brother Industries. Not sure if that was like in partnership with them or not, but they discovered 8 new vulnerabilities. Some of the vulnerabilities affect 689 models across Brother's range of printer, scanner, and label making devices, which also is hard to buy a label maker now that isn't Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connected. I'm like, I just want the old school like thing to print labels, and the one that was recommended on Amazon, I bought it, and I unboxed it, and I'm like, how do I got to install an app for that and like create an account? I'm like, this is terrible. I just want to print labels. Anyway.
I got a cable. Come on.
Yep. So what, 46 from Fujifilm, 5 from Ricoh, 2 from Toshiba, and 6 from Konica Minolta. With some of the same or all these vulnerabilities. 748 different printer models across 5 vendors.
Wow.
One was bad. One was the thing that HD was talking about in the previous segment. Unauthenticated attacker can generate the device's default administrator password. That is CVE 2024-51978. And if you dig, there's like the article and then the technical analysis. If you scroll down to about the middle, is a PDF with like the stuff that we want to read. The other stuff is, I don't know, for other people that don't want the technical detail. I don't know why you wouldn't want the technical details in this, because it's awesome. But you go to that, and it's in this report. And if you keep scrolling, 51978, is that what I said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the default password is an 8-character value generated by processing the device's serial number with a custom algorithm. If an unauthenticated attacker can leak the device's serial number, the attacker can generate the default password of the device. That's what HP.
And you can get the serial number from SNMP.
Correct.
With public.
Correct. So then basically you have the default password. But it hinges on the fact that the administrator has not changed the default password to a new password.
Who's going to do that?
On a multifunction device,
Yeah,
nobody does that. I mean, we might do that, but
yeah. And then we forget
most
it.
people don't. But they also said that,
we do.
So the real interesting thing about this was that particular vulnerability. So I want to make sure I get this right. They said somewhere in the article that they can't. This was just, Brother. Thank you. Brother has indicated that this vulnerability cannot be fully remediated in firmware. And has required a change to the manufacturing process of all affected models.
Wow. So something was burnt. Something's burned in, huh?
Burned. The algorithm is burned onto a ROM chip. The way it calculates it must be in a piece of the firmware that's not updatable.
That's interesting.
Now your gears are turning like mine. I'm like, how is that particular process for default password not updatable in firmware? And why would you do that?
Well, are we sure? Are we sure? Are we sure we're talking about that specific CVE? Because there's. Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, we are.
Yes.
That is crazy.
Right? Like, well, it's not a great situation to be in if you got one of these devices. I get that. But also, as the security researcher me and the hacker in me is like, that is super cool.
That is.
There are vulnerabilities that cannot be fixed, right? We've seen this a lot.
Well, at least they were good enough to provide a workaround for existing devices. I mean, they say, look, only the the new stuff made with the new manufacturing process is going to have this vulnerability fully fixed. But at least they're coming up with. I mean, I haven't evaluated the workaround, but at least they're offering something. I mean, it's like too bad. So buy a new printer really isn't very nice.
Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control on every executable that can happen in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps. Just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step towards total peace of mind. Visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. The workaround, doesn't require that you attach a spy flash controller or solder on
What's the
serial.
workaround? Maybe I didn't hear
the
it.
workaround, change the default password.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right?
Right. So you change the default password, and then what? But if you do a factory reset, it'll change it back, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's where I was going next, Lee, right? Firmware update, factory reset.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes firmware update will revert it back to a default password.
Yeah.
But certainly a factory reset might switch it back to that same default password because of NVRAM, right? Stores it in NVRAM.
Yeah. So maybe that's the problem, is that they're saying that maybe that exact thing, if you were to reset it, it's going to be back to that same flaw. I don't know.
It's going to reset your password again.
Yeah.
This is why I was advocating for people to scan for default passwords, because sometimes they revert back.
So what's interesting is, so I think I generally think that Brother printers are one of the better ones. I didn't know that they had any relationship between Ricoh and Toshiba and Konica Minolta. I guess those are all are their family, I would guess. If
They probably bought them over the years, acquisition.
Or if nothing else, they're leveraging components that are white boxed between multiple manufacturers.
Yeah, fair. Interesting. Good work from Rapid7, man.
It's pretty cool, huh?
Neat stuff.
Oh, so I want to talk about Iran for a little bit, because we didn't talk about that
Iran
last week.
So far away. No,
yes.
Sorry.
I've heard lots of things. I don't know what's true. I feel like everything on the internet is a lie.
Yeah.
That's just kind of when I lean into it. Everything on the internet's a lie, especially when it comes for anything that is even remotely related to politics today. There's a disinformation flavor to it that just has my shit detectors going off. But so I did hear in this whole recent, I don't want to call it a war, but it was a military operation. I mean, there is a war between Israel and Iran.
Mm-hmm.
There's supposedly a ceasefire now, although Israel didn't abide by the ceasefire guidelines. But stuff happened. So Israel, I heard, so these are things I heard, I don't know if they're true. Israel launched a disinformation campaign just prior to the attacks, that they hacked TV stations to spread propaganda. Mm-hmm. And it was things like rise up, resist kind of thing that were, telling the people. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. If so, pretty interesting cyber warfare.
Well, what's interesting about that is an Iranian tactic that they've used in the past, right? So if Israel
against other people, yeah.
So having consulted on trying to protect certain infrastructures specifically from Iran, that is something that's in their playbook. So it's interesting. If I didn't hear that one specifically, but if Israel is using that one, that came straight out of Iran's playbook. Yeah.
Is that turnabout's fair play?
Right. I don't know.
Some of the other reports I read were that when the way we conducted the bombing attacks, there was a lot of false flags, a lot of all their planes, fighter jets in the air. Some of them were kind of doing the actual mission. Some of them were just kind of like decoys, essentially.
Yep.
But that the anti-missile systems, for lack of a better term, I don't know if that's the right term, anti-warcraft systems, the defenses against that were taken down via cyber attacks. Now, again, that's unconfirmed. I'm not sure if that's the case. But given the fact we were able to go in there and bomb some stuff, in Iran, it would makes sense that their radar systems and or anti-aircraft weaponry was taken out in some manner. Some say via a cyber attack.
So, we also use stealth bombers that look like a flock of birds, right, on radar signatures, and we're talking about, like Iran, who may not have, and I am not an
you're our official military correspondent now, Bill.
Right. So I definitely don't want to be that, right?
I don't want to be that.
but I would imagine that, like at that time, and they're also dealing with, they've been at war really forever, right? But I mean, but actual like real kinetic attacks, like ongoing kinetic attacks for let's just say for the better, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, right? I don't, maybe there was, but from what I heard, and this was off of just news media, no private, chat groups or anything like that we did have some strike fighters that took out some so using kinetic
kinetic warfare,
right?
Yep, sure.
They took out some strategic radar banks, but I didn't hear anything about cyber. Now the coolest thing, and you kind of glossed over it, was the false, like the decoy planes that we launched. And the reason why I heard that they had to do that was because of people like Lee. They specifically mentioned Lee Neely by name that have Raspberry Pis in their closets that are tracking tail numbers of jets. Like, they specifically said that, that this, and Lee, maybe you can talk a little bit more about it than I, but that the hobbyist community would have been able to determine very, very quickly that these jets were headed east and probably related to the Israel-Iran conflict. And that's why they had to do this, was to confuse hobbyists. I don't know.
Well, so what it is, folks like me, and I think Larry has one too, have an ADS-B receiver that's tracking the transponders as they go overhead. I mean, I've got a range of about 100 miles right now, but my antenna is indoors. The flight radar folks collect them all up and aggregate them, and there's like 50,000 of these things around the world collecting them, and you wind up with quite the data model and representative of planes, where they're going, where they've been, where they are, how high they are, what they're, like you said, the tail number or whatever. Now, typically military aircraft have a bunch of that information obfuscated, but you can still see a plane going that way of, this kind of a footprint.
And very much like some of the Run Zero stuff, like, right? Even though it's obfuscated, you can start to get some pretty ideas.
Collect enough information.
Where that flight started from, which direction it's headed, that the fact that it's obscured is probably a pretty good idea, because it's pretty common knowledge where the B-52 bases they come out of. So.
Early on, we heard there were two groups of B-2s, one going west, one going east, but I later found an article that there were a total of 125 aircraft involved.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, that's certainly incredible. And I just, if nothing else, I just thought it was neat that it was this, this hacker community that they're taking in an account in their war plan, right? Like, that's neat.
Well, the CCTV cameras are kind of in a similar realm, right? Because anyone can go on the internet and find CCTV camera, IoT-based cameras, but apparently there was one missile from Iran going to Israel that slipped through, and the Iranians hacked into the CCTV cameras to see what the damage was from the one missile that slipped through. Again, I don't know if that's true at all. Like, I take everything with a grain of salt. Like that we're hearing. Are we hearing this on purpose? Is it propaganda, disinformation campagin, or not?
But, hey, Billy, you watching Slack? I mean, Discord?
No, slacking on his duties.
All right. Oh, there we go. Wait, it's the same people. Go ahead.
What is happening?
Don't ask.
Okay, I'm not asking.
Yeah.
It's mess with Bill Day. Didn't you know that?
Yeah.
Oh,
we were giving Larry a break.
It's always.
But also, like, when in doubt, though, I mean, when push comes to shove, dude, like, just turn the internet off for the whole country.
Well, so go ahead, Leo. I'll go after you.
Actually, I was going to say, is that even viable? I guess a small country like Iran, but can you really actually do that anymore?
I think with a smaller country like Iran,
I mean, you could
heavily controlled by, I would imagine, I'm just guessing here, that the internet is controlled by the government in Iran.
Well, I mean, in any given country, there are only so many inputs and outputs to the greater community, and whether they're government controlled or not, just shut them down. I mean, same thing for the U.S. We could effectively isolate the internet, the internet in the U.S. from other countries. There are fixed and finite locations in which that populates to the rest of the world.
That's correct.
Specifically, looking at my story number 6, NREL maps out the U.S. data infrastructure. And if you remember, Paul, from back way in the day when we started first getting on the internet, like there'd be a map of all the hosts on the internet and what all the when you were working back at Ocean, like you could see the size. They had a map of all the size of the internet pipes between May East and May West. Similar type of thing, and you could very easily figure out sort of where the infills and exfills for coming in and out of the country are. And
so I think it was to stop the propaganda campaign was one of the primary reasons why they would turn the internet off.
Also, infiltration of cyber.
Cyber protect their cyber assets. Yep. Yeah. Before we get too far deep and Sam is back at his desk, I want to talk about one of the ones we had in the beginning, the best hacker in the country.
No, it's Bill.
Happens to be an AI bot.
I thought that was Bill.
I know. We're the AI bot. We answered that one already. Before we move on, your NREL map out the U.S. infrastructure. What's really, really interesting about this, Larry, as now I do have some information about this. So those maps are close, but they are not correct.
Yeah.
Right.
I would imagine that.
And they are, it actually, once you get, and I can't remember exactly where it was there, we had a, so I used to run some of the world's U.S. largest critical infrastructure from a telco perspective. And we could anything below a certain, I think it was like 45, I don't know, 45 miles or something like that, the radius or something like that was classified on where our lines ran, in the U.S. So like you specifically look around the Denver area. Now, and the reason I want to call this out is if you look at those dots in the around Denver, there may be a city block or something that if there was a suitcase bomb or a box truck bomb or something that could take out the internet for a very, very large port, and you can see it right there. Very, very large part of the United States would be removed from the internet right there in Denver, right? And so it's really, really interesting when you start looking at the secrecy. Well, first of all, the complexity, but also starting to understand the secrecy of those maps, right? It's so neat to me. I don't know. I think it's
there are what do we call them? POPs, right?
Yeah.
There are strategic POPs, points of presence. If you were to take them out, like you said, Bill, significant portions. I remember working for in ISP. I worked for an ISP as well. And I was like, well, if something were to happen in this data center, that would be a bad day for in our case, like pretty much everyone in Rhode Island, but maybe even farther reaching than that.
Well, I remember for years I was on the Energy Sciences Net outage notification emails for years. And it was amazing how as they got more and more mature, you'd get these outages all over and they wouldn't impact the users. They would just impact some of their backbone pieces because things would route around amazingly well.
Yeah, there is a lot more resiliency today. And now that I think of it, we were routing both internet and internet 2.
Yep.
And I'm wondering now, what the contingency plans are for both, because there was a lot of redundancy where if the internet 2 route went down, we could route over the internet. I wonder if there was a way to go the opposite way.
I'm sure there is.
You could ride on internet 2.
Yeah,
but the funny thing was a lot of the POPs were the POPs for both internet and internet 2, right? Because if you're gonna build, all the data lines and the infrastructure there, you're gonna do it for both, basically both internet. I mean, most people don't even know that there's an entire, basically a copy of the internet, but just for educational institutions, and it's super high bandwidth, so that universities can share research data was the purpose of it. I haven't checked in an Internet 2 in a long time.
It's been a long time since I've like
because you dealt with it too when you worked for Century. Yeah,
for sure.
Super cool stuff though. Anyway,
all right, to build the best hacker as an AI bot.
Oh yeah, tell us about this, Sam. Whenever we talk to security teams, one thing is clear. They are under more pressure than ever, facing increasingly complex and higher stakes threats. That's where Flashpoint comes in. Flashpoint empowers organizations to make mission-critical decisions to keep their people and assets safe. Flashpoint combines cutting-edge technology with expert intelligence teams, empowering security leaders with the critical data and alerts and analysis needed to act before threats escalate. And with Ignite, Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to real-time insights, finished intelligence, and analytics all in one place. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Flashpoint.
Yeah, well, it's HackerOne, I think. Yep, HackerOne's leaderboard shows that the XBOW AI product is at the top of the list now. So this is an assistant that a human supervises, and it finds vulnerabilities. And they found vulnerabilities in Amazon, Walt Disney, PayPal, and Sony.
Wow.
And I say they do need a human to supervise it to screen out the hallucinations. And while it can find common coding errors, it cannot understand the logic of an app, of course. That takes a human. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when looking at a medical app, it doesn't understand that if one patient can see another patient's medical treatments, that's a flaw. So, but still, it's finding a lot of new things. And I think this is the wave of the future, like we've been saying many times. The future is going to be everybody using AIs to help them be better and faster at their job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I think we all want to see a day or don't, but envision the AI or think of the AI assisted bots in technology as, here's this piece of software. I just throw it in an AI, and the AI spits back like, oh, I found these vulnerabilities, and I wrote these exploits for you. Like, it's all done. We're not there yet. It takes a human to sift through the data. What it can help you with is, if you've got thousands or millions of lines of code in an application, hey, tell me where the most likely places are where I should spend more of my time, right? And that was when you look at the Qualys research team finds all kinds of bugs and vulnerabilities and writes exploits for open source software that's very widely used. From last time I talked with them, it was a very manual process for them.
Right.
It behooves them to use some type of AI technology to level it down, to be like, you don't have to look at, they have skilled people, and there's not a lot of these people in the world. They can look at source code and go, that's a vulnerability. But not only is that a vulnerability, but I need this other vulnerability, and I need to chain these two together, and that gets me my goal, and then write the exploit code. But if you can take the million, I don't know how many lines of code is in sudo, right? Sudo, I don't know. Let's say it's 1 million. Which lines of code should I be looking at so I don't have to look at all 1 million? That's where an AI, I think, is.
You should look at all of them.
Well, the AI can look at all of them and go, based on all this, here's where you should focus in. Right. And this is how I see folks using Ghidra and some of the agentic modifications and extensions for that, is to kind of help you go, you got all this stuff to look at, let's level it down. Someone just did that with, I don't know if I left the story in, but it was GIMP. Someone used Ghidra and based it on previous research and leveling it down, right? Mm-hmm. AI is a good use case for that.
That was your story number 2, Paul.
Yeah. So kind of similar.
Yeah, and I think also it's the way you use automated scanners even now, like things that crawl websites. You do part of it manually, and then you use an automated scanner for the part that is really tedious, like really clicking every single link and looking at every page. Mm-hmm. And this is what Bruce Schneier wrote about. He said the point of an AI is that it can handle a huge amount of data. It can do a whole lot of work really fast, but it's kind of stupid. So, it just it will do a superficial test of everything, and then you pick the interesting parts and do manual testing because you're smarter.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also like, I loved back in the day, the web, and I don't know where the current state of this is, but it was like Phantom.js, and there was a lot of tools that people wrote that basically, it was a lot of it for bug bounty stuff. So you've got an IP address block, there could be a potential of, let's say, of 1 million IP addresses in that block. Maybe there's 10,000 live IP addresses. Maybe 1,000 of those have a web server interface. Okay, me as a human, I'm not going to go to each one of those 1,000 and like look at the web page and go, like what is that? And what can I do with it? What I do is I code something that's automated that goes, hey, for those 1,000, go to that website and just take a screenshot.
Yep, we have a couple of those tools already.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are tools that we've built. The interesting thing is if you could build AI onto that today and go based on that 1,000 images, now populate the database of what that is and what are the most likely points of vulnerability or exploitation for me. And maybe I get back 50 that I have to look at as a human.
Yeah, I mean, like, but we don't even need to feed it the image. Like, just right at the beginning, go tell me what these are, right? Like, what like what are these? What are these pages? Are they?
It's just data.
Yeah.
AI is great at crunching data. So that's where I see it being used.
I'm thinking how HD said they're not putting AI in Run Zero yet. And I'm sympathizing with that because remember last week we talked about the AI running Nmap. So I set it up and ran it, and it's pathetic. It's incredibly slow.
Really?
It's superficial. It's not worth anything, as you anticipated. You'd be so much better off if you just asked an AI to tell you what switches should I turn on to Nmap to accomplish this, and then you run Nmap yourself. So it's and
I'm glad you did that, Sam. It's good info. And I appreciate HD is not jumping on the bandwagon going, hey, look, we're Run Zero. We use AI to help you map your network, right? He's like, but the smart folks like HD and others are like, yes, we're testing it. My day job is included. Like, yep, looking at it, not discounting it as a technology, but we're not saying, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread and you should absolutely buy our product because we have AI included. No, it's a calculated, it's a new technology that we're testing. And I think it's a lot of these things.
And it's complicated and hard to use. And so you have to decide, is it really doing something valuable enough to justify the effort? And I think for a lot of people, not yet. It needs to get better before it's really a plus for your company.
It needs to, the usability aspect, right? If you were to, and I've done this in some of my projects too, I'm like, wow, I need to put in a lot of effort to train this model to do this specific thing. And that's a lot of work. I'm imagining in a future where it's not as much work or as tedious or technical.
Well, that's
it's getting easier. Yeah.
I was going to say there's some things we could say not ready for AI yet. Maybe there's a better way to put it, but basically this is not a good application of AI because there's a gazillion things that are good applications for it. So don't beat your head against that wall. Do these other things.
Another thing is the security consequences, and that's my story number 9. I mean, people sell these AI hacking tools called worm GPTs that are able to do malicious, forbidden things. And some of them actually find models that don't have security baked in, but at least 2 of them run the full models with security baked in, and they just escape with prompt injection.
With prompt injection.
And they turned to another method of prompt injection I just read about that goes through multiple questions where you ask it something a little bit shady, it gives you an answer, and then you take words from its answer and get a little shadier and a little shadier. And so after like 10 requests, you've now put it in a state where it'll totally ignore the security rules. And I think that's another reason why people should be very cautious with their AI tools, because they're all fundamentally unsafe with this vulnerability of command injection, which is a really serious flaw. And nobody has a good defense yet.
Well, but sometimes it's even more insidious than that. Like did you catch the Asana MCP that was, they were, I want to say they did horizontal versus vertical security. You could look at topics that you were authorized to look at, but it wasn't restricted to only your company. So different customers' data of the same category you could see across. So I don't know what to call that, horizontal and vertical, but basically they by the way they caught it, and they turned it off, and now they've said
but I venture to guess that I think right now the bar is I don't know, maybe the bar is lower than we think, but if you're a reasonably well established company with some budget, you could go get the right hardware, you could hire data scientists, right? Or someone who's got some skills in AI, and they could be training models for you. And if you're an offensive team, you can be like, look, I want a model that's going to go write exploits for me, or at least help us write exploits. Just like you could train a model to help you write code that does whatever. It's, the other models may have guardrails on it, but, you go get a cluster, and you get someone with some skills that know how to train that model. I mean, I think that bar is going to slowly lower and lower as we go forward. But I gotta imagine that these larger pen test firms and whatever are going, yeah, I can build a model that helps me find vulnerabilities and write exploits. Absolutely, and that's within their realm. And why not?
Well, sure. And there are not many security considerations for an offensive tool. You don't have to worry about it so much. It's
right.
For a routine tool like a customer service bot is the kind of thing where you really have to have security defenses.
Right.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, internal versus externally facing AI tools for sure.
I would say the audience
my other joke though is that we put all this infrastructure in the cloud, right? And now we've got these data centers sitting around with empty racks, and now we're just filling them with NVIDIA hardware. Like, oh, I need to build my own model. I need some hardware to do that. I need 1,000 GPUs. I got a bunch of empty data center racks because I moved myself to the cloud. Let's go use that stuff and fill it with NVIDIA, whatever the model is, H200 or 100, whatever the model number is.
So much for that cost-saving initiative.
I think very few companies have the technical skill to develop their own model and train their own model. Only the very largest companies are going to do that, I think. Yeah. The investment in both skill of your staff and resources is quite high, I think.
I don't know. I mean, there's one of
foundation models on the internet.
There's a couple of our friends that they're doing it. I don't have all the details on what they've done, but they're doing it, and I do plan to pull them away temporarily from what they're working on and go, dude, what are you doing? Like, you should talk about this because it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that it can be cost effective compared to just using an Amazon cloud instance and the foundation model. That's what everybody I deal with is doing.
But I think a lot of them I think a lot of MSPs and a lot of the more innovative ones are working on this technology. My indicator is just observing things in people's posts that they're doing that.
Yeah, but I'm with Sam. I'm thinking, would I do that on-prem? I mean, I think absolutely. There's a lot of use cases where I don't want my own model and my own stuff, but would I build my own physical, or would I use a virtual collection?
Yeah, well, this is the matrix of we built multiple matrices based on this, right? It's I want to build an app for my company. Matt Alderman did a great job building this matrix, by the way. He was like, you can do everything yourself, right? You can write the code. You can host the operating system, the servers, the hardware, rack and stack, and have the whole thing in a data center and do everything yourself. And you're responsible for security from the application layer all the way down to the friggin' BIOS and UEFI in BMC on your systems, right? Then the next model is maybe I abstract away that lowest layer, right? So now I'm just getting a hosted provider. I get an instance on Amazon. They're responsible for the hardware, BIOS, and all that stuff. I'm doing from the OS up and just marching down the stack up until I have this piece of code that I want to run, and it's a Lambda function, and everything else is taken care of by the cloud provider, and it's all their responsibility for security, and my responsibility is just in my small little app. I think it's the same thing for AI, right? It's, do I want to do everything myself, have all my own hardware, build all my own models and do that? Or do I just want to prompt ChatGPT or Perplexity and go, write me this code?
And that's go ahead, Sam.
No, but the cloud provider doesn't accept responsibility for security at all from a data security point of view. All they provide is availability.
Agreed. It's a shared responsibility model. Yeah. They do have some responsibility for security, not for your data. The data that app is taken in and out, maybe stored in a database, your responsibility. Amazon's responsibility is to make sure that no one's bypassing the hypervisor layer and jumping into your instance and stealing your data. Right. That's it. Yeah. That is there. But it's a shared responsibility. Neither party can go, I don't have anything to do with security, and just throw their hands up in the air. You do share it, right?
So, but the other beauty of the model, Paul, is that, when we first started getting in the cloud, there were things we were definitely aware we were not ready to put on somebody else's cloud infrastructure. We just didn't have the experience, trust, you name it. And I think
that changed over time.
Yeah,
right.
And I think AI is on that same curve.
Oh, so you think people are going to lean towards other people building the stuff, and because there is the middle ground.
Right now, there's a
what
lot
do we call them? We call them
get things wrong with AI, so that's why you want to insource. But
yeah.
ultimately,
I mean, but you can go to Amazon and you can go, I want a GPU cluster to run or train my model on, and it's super expensive, right? And it's interesting. Amazon recently, in the past couple of weeks, slashed their prices, right? Like Walmart rollback. Amazon's like, no, we're slashing prices.
Attention Kmart shoppers.
But I think
special.
I believe that's in direct response to people going, I'm going to find a smaller neo cloud provider, as we call them, that's racking and stacking this hardware and it is much cheaper than Amazon, or larger companies that are like, oh, I got an empty data center somewhere. I'm just going to go buy the equipment from NVIDIA. It's good for about a year until the new stuff comes on. Then I'm going to, liquidate that stuff, replace it with the new stuff. And if it's aligned to the business, they're going to spend the money and they're going to do that. But it also could be cheaper than hosting in the cloud.
Or maybe not even liquidate all of that stuff. Just run that at the lower tier. Run that at the lower tier, at a lower cost.
Well, you know how most of us roll. We never throw away hardware. Repurpose and repurpose, right, Mandy? How much hardware have you thrown out? You keep it.
None.
You use it.
Well, I got to tell you, I just cleared out my junk closet and threw away some hardware, but it was the cycle time is very long.
Yeah, but Lee, I will, and I'm going to throw a little shade here. I've seen your junk closet. Pitiful.
Well, pitiful.
Well,
wow, shots fired.
But the garage on the other hand, is impressive. So you redeem for that.
Yeah.
But that's not junk, and that's not stuff that you're old tech. That's stuff you're actively using.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've been working on a general path to like download my services at home into smaller footprints and things like it's a bitch to move a closet full of crap. It really is, and it doesn't always travel well.
Same thing, Lee. Like you asked me 10 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, I got a full size 19-inch rack in my basement. You know what I have now? I have a full 19-inch rack in my basement with a decommissioned switch that's acting as a shelf for a couple of Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
I'm actively trying to find some other storage cabinet that I can mount to the wall to remove that 19-inch rack because I just don't need that kind of space because everything has become smaller.
You just need your own NVIDIA cluster, dude. And then,
but I don't. I can go rent it from Amazon.
Yeah, you could, but there is a higher cost.
Or if I want to do some reasonable local LLMs, I can go buy like a Mac Mini with the unified memory. And that is a freaking screamer for doing.
I heard the Mac. I was watching a video on, what was it? Was it Linus Tech Tips?
Could be.
On how they edit videos remotely at a show, and they're using these newer Mac Minis that are like super.
Yeah, the M4s with the unified memory, and
what is unified memory?
It basically takes all the GPU and CPU memory and combines them into a single pool. So depending on what you're doing, you have a whole bunch of GPU memory or you have a whole bunch of CPU memory.
Right.
And so M4 MacBook Pros, all that type of stuff do same sort of thing.
CPU memory is in memory that's on the die of the CPU?
As in RAM.
As in RAM. Regular RAM, not on cache, not cache, not L2, L3 cache.
Correct.
So in the left turn at Albuquerque category, I remember there used to be a project out there for taking a Mac Mini and an old Millennium Falcon model and turning it into like a media station. So you had what looked like a Millennium Falcon about that big, powered by a Mac Mini that was your media center. I know that's totally left turn at Albuquerque, but it was cool.
But now you can run LLMs on that.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, damn, I could run LLMs. I could do all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And just make sure that the heat indicators are represented in LEDs, right? That can light up the ship and you know how hot it's running.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We have to power all this stuff.
Well, but you're powering a Mac Mini and not this.
Not
this huge. Yeah.
I saw something. I didn't have the story, but I saw something that Microsoft was interested in spinning up the good reactor at 3 Mile Island. Like there was the one that melted down.
Yeah, I saw this story. It was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
that that Microsoft was looking to spin up more nuclear tech, and because of AI and being able to power all these data centers.
And NVIDIA was all about it as well.
Yep. And like this isn't a story that's too crazy out of the wild. I mean, we know somebody that may or may not have been helping to spool up a coal-fired power plant that had been shut down to run a whole bunch of GPUs, and it wasn't for AI at the time, but it was for coin mining.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I bet you if they started that project in 2025, it would be AI.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's probably more money in it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool.
Lee, you had also the story about the Canadian telecom that was hacked with the older Cisco CVE. Mm-hmm. HD was talking about that in our previous segment. Is there anything else to add on that?
Salt Typhoon, right?
Yeah, that's Salt Typhoon. What got me, and this is the thing is, okay, I mean, first, it's critical infrastructure. Okay, why the hell aren't they patching it? And this is a 2023 vulnerability. And the implication is the same way that Salt got into AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. I have not proven or disproven that, but it sure feels same shit, different day. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking these guys are the ones that can afford the carrier grade stuff that has that really good failover. So well, maybe not the Canadian carrier, but a lot of them are.
But I mean, it's iOS XE, right? That's like carrier grade, the carrier grade gear from Cisco that runs the iOS XE, which is the.
And I know it's bloody expensive, but it's designed to be highly available, modular,
very expensive. But is this the stuff that also has Linux on it? It's like Linux underneath, but an iOS layer on top.
That sounds right.
I mean, honestly, it shouldn't really matter because of the way it was designed to be highly redundant, fault tolerant, and deployed in high availability, so you could take one of these things offline, update it, put it back online, take the next one down, update it.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't ISPs applying patches?
That's the
to
question.
This stuff for like a while. I mean, this is 2023.
I will venture to guess.
Yeah,
they don't test it often, and they're scared. Bill, any thoughts?
I think both of those are right, and you're missing a very important piece, because this thing prints money, and if I touch it or if I don't, it's going to continue to print money.
And how can a telecom tell you we're going to have a controlled outage for several hours while we update stuff?
Well, I mean, so there will be failover, like Larry mentioned. That part is actually pretty easy, but every hour that I spend on an engineer, all of those things take away the profits. Just let that thing print money and just let it go.
That's a good point, Bill.
Those things have been running for 40 years, right? And
it's still printing money at the same rate.
That's right. Yep.
Don't touch it. Let it get hacked.
I had two other scenarios I run across. One is an extreme aversion to any delta between the components in a system for even the smallest of interval. Right?
You're absolutely correct. Yep.
And the other is, sure, you can do maintenance. You get 1 hour a year, and all system maintenance of any time has to be done in that. So now you've got this log jam of who draws the short straw or whatever, and you're never going to get it all done because you just can't take the
but if you've got, so this was 2023. Right. So let's say you took a year to implement it. We're sitting here in 2025. You've got a year to plan for and execute an update.
Yeah, but all the other updates on top of that.
Yeah.
Oh, because you've incurred a lot of technical debt because you haven't been applying updates.
Because you only get it one because you're taking a year to plan these updates, or you only have certain windows to plan these updates.
But I'm going to come back to that. Suppose I have 10 routers and I have to update on the next version, but they can't be mixed, some old and some new. Then I take one of them down and update it, but now I can't bring it back up. I don't understand how you do this without having an outage period, and that's totally unacceptable for them.
Right. I mean,
Mandy's got
and that's why I went there. The insanity of that model. I mean, there has to be a tolerance, at least for a minimal delta window, where you brought up the new one, verified it works, or you're going to roll back and then fix the next one. But
I get knocked down, I get up again.
Mandy.
And it is. I have a whole lot of sympathy for the engineers in that equation, by the way. They had to be hating.
Yeah, no, I've been there. Mandy?
Okay. I'm having stuttering issues. So
Whee! All right, this is going to be fun. No, I'm kidding.
Bill, I'm curious, is because of the ancient hardware why a GRE tunnel was more possible?
More possible than what?
No, just was there anything where, because it is older technology, that it made the use of a GRE tunnel like that much simpler? Not then
or
what,
the,
just
or the only option.
Yeah.
Or the only option.
So right. And so just to be clear, like that, when I worked at CenturyLink, that wasn't my responsibility, right? But I was included on a lot of those projects.
It's all your fault, Bill.
Right.
I'm still blaming you for everything.
And that's fair, and I'll take it. But truly, what Larry just said happened in a lot of scenarios where, okay, why is this thing running this, whatever that is? And the answer was, because that's all it can run, right? This hardware truly is 30 years old, Bill. Like this is this is what it can do, right? And so
yeah, but we're not talking about 30-year-old hardware. Like iOS XE is not 30 years
fair.
old.
That's fair, right? But but I will.
I'm not picking on you on purpose, Bill.
Yeah.
Right? But I just fleshing this out. This is newer hardware, and I also empathize with, because I've lived this as well.
I think it goes.
You've got these routers, right? And I think people maybe underestimate the complexity, and it might be being too hard on the engineers that are implementing this. You've got these big routers that are running the internet, probably multiple routing protocols and supporting very specific features. And if you update that, the chances that one of those features may not work, and also to Sam's point, all the routers are running different versions with, the older version of the feature that might not be compatible. So therefore, upgrades could take 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm on the opposite side now. I'm defending the engineers that are trying to keep the shit running. Mm-hmm. I can see this scenario being extremely complicated.
I'd add one more aspect to it, Paul. Think about them with having in mind what happened to the engineers that made the one update that caused the AT&T Mobile a couple of years ago. That resume.
Yeah, no one wants an outage. Right? I agree. No one wants an outage.
No. And
because it's not just, when you're an ISP, it's not just your company. It's thousands of companies that could be impacted, right? And it's your business model that could be impacted. If you've got two options for an ISP, and ISP 1, you had suffered a huge outage that cost you money, maybe you switch to ISP 2.
And also,
right? They didn't have that outage.
And these are telcos. And when telephone service goes down, people start dying because there are people at home with medical equipment that needs to connect over the internet and needs to connect over telephone lines.
Well, and fines, right? So when that happens, whenever there's an outage,
I agree, Bill.
No, I mean, like when there's a telephone outage, you incur fines per minute per region, right? So,
and these guys were not only, I mean, these were like cellular, satellite. They had all kinds of shit that they were running on that stuff, which is great. But I think that multiplies Bill's point. I mean, you could get all kinds of compound outages. And I think to Mandy's point, I'm wondering how much lowest common denominator, given you're trying to do things consistently, did you have to fall back to GRE tunnels everywhere because that's what everything would run? So you couldn't do the cooler, sexier, more secure stuff.
I mean, to Mandy's point, GRE tunnels could be the common denominator of features that exist in this gear, right? Because it's iOS, from what I remember, is very feature dependent, right? Like you had a model router, but just think about this. It's not like a router that's all encapsulated like in one thing. It could be a chassis that has multiple cards in it.
Right.
And the software, the firmware rather, that's tied to the chassis plus the cards that go in it is specific to what cards you're putting in it, to what features you want to implement. Do you want IGRP? Do you want BGP? Do you want, whatever routing protocols, whatever security protocols have in there? And like upgrading that could be really, really gnarly. GRE tunnels might be the common denominator that exists in all of them.
Right. And, and all I can think of is we can't do much for the telecoms. I mean, they got their challenges, but can we use this as a model in our own environments to try and not be a smaller version of them? Can we not have that happen to us?
they need to be more resilient. And that sounds easy, right? But we've got a lot of technical debt to overcome to be resilient in this capacity.
If it were easy, it wouldn't be a conversation.
And this incident and many others underscores the need to be more resilient.
Absolutely.
But we can't just wave a wand and go, oh, like I woke up today, we need to be more resilient. And hey, snap my fingers and tomorrow we're more resilient, right? Like these
Wait, it doesn't work that way?
Dude, these upgrades are...
Larry, did you bring your pixie dust?
Yeah, I did.
We're talking about the internet. Like I worked for a university that had... what was Brown University? 300-acre campus, right? How many, 30,000 plus people, maybe more than that when you include faculty, students, and employees. We had a pretty vast network. Dude, upgrades were complicated. I mean, I learned a lot through those upgrades. So much so that I can kind of now I'm empathizing and I'm being too hard on the people that are doing these upgrades, right? Bill's laughing at me now because I'm like, oh yeah. Now it's all coming back.
Well, you're a flip flopper. You're a flip flopper.
Yeah, I'm flip flopping. Yeah. Like this shit's hard. This shit's hard. I get it now.
Yeah. Yep. See,
I had to flesh it out. I had to work through it.
You only had to deal with 300 acres. Bill's got to deal with like a billion
millions of acres. Right.
Well, I was going to say if we hadn't gotten to Bill's scope, I would have said Idaho National Lab, 847 square miles.
Right.
But then I remember I had folks at Metropolitan Water in LA where they had things like drones because it took too long to fly and survey with trucks. They had to go faster because they were covering hundreds of miles. And then Bill, hold your beer, right?
Well, yeah. So I mean, like, luckily, and unfortunately, that really wasn't my my expertise. I didn't really have to hold down the fort for that. But again, the problem is you start facing this problem of, and Lee, whether you're talking about any of those examples, is how many engineers per mile do you actually even have, right? Right, too few, right? You've got, so when we start talking about these giant routers and all over, you may...
Yeah, but it begs the question, what are your engineers doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can answer part of that question. I know
Too many meetings.
You're talking about...
Too many meetings.
No, not just that, which is the thing. You're right, Bill. Yeah. But it was what we would call an incident was backhoe attenuation.
Attenuation by backhoe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about where I worked was on the east side of Providence and Brown University, right? There was construction happening all the time, sometimes by the university, sometimes by the city, and someone would be digging, upgrading infrastructure, and would literally cut a fiber optic cable. And now there's a significant portion of the Brown University campus doesn't have connectivity. And that was engineers working round the clock for a week to help restore and get things back to normal for no fault of their own. There was just we used the word kinetic before, there was a kinetic event that we had to,
that was in similar lines, Paul. Back in the day when I was working for the university, we had attenuation by parking lot resurfacer.
Yeah,
because in one of our campuses, the fiber installer that buried all of the fiber optic lines
didn't bury it deep enough
in conduit, didn't bury it deep enough because there was a big freaking rock in the way, so they just kind of skirted around the rock about 3 inches.
That happened in my home. That happened in my house. My son was just edging the garden bed, cut the fiber optic cable, and I feel bad to this day because I blamed it on him at first. I'm like, "What are you doing, dude?" And then the guy came out and he's like, "Dude, this should have been buried way deeper." And then I went to my son, I'm like, "Dude, not your fault. It's Verizon's fault."
Well, we had some crackhead steal a bunch of our fiber thinking it was copper, right?
Oh my God.
Come on. Great. Thanks
for that.
Yep. Yeah. Mandy, you sounded like you had a comment in there.
Oh, just previously I was on the other side, doing the backhoe attenuation or remediating it.
Because that's your background.
It's all Mandy's fault.
Right.
Dude, backhoes are awesome. I rented a backhoe in my backyard for 2 weekends. It was awesome, and I can totally see.
You were probably only using the little baby one.
It was a baby one.
You didn't bury that fiber.
Mini excavators are where it's at.
Right.
So mini excavators with the articulating arm and bucket. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But dealing with ruptured water lines, power, fiber optics, that was much more of my life before.
Hey, I wanted to transition to a privacy-related story that you guys had that I did not read, and I think Larry and I don't know if it was Lee or Sam.
Oh, which one was this one?
Had the local host tracking could cost Meta $32 billion. Now, Facebook Meta has been fine in the past. Excuse me, but I feel like dropping the bucket, sucker. Right? Like, they were like, whatever, $1 million, $1 billion fine for Meta or Facebook with Meta today is like whatever. 32 billion is pretty impactful. What's going on with the privacy aspect of Meta? Sam, was that your story too?
Yeah, that was.
I've got one about it. Somebody else had the financial consequences. It wasn't in my story, but the point is, Android apps are sandboxed. Each app runs as a different user account, and it cannot see the data from other apps. And
I would imagine iOS apps are the same way.
It's a whole different mechanism, but the apps can't see each other's data. But this particular issue only addresses the Android apps, because what they did was Facebook wanted to have their app track all your web usage, even usage in other apps like your browser.
So this is the Facebook app itself.
It's a Facebook product, a Meta app. Let me get which app it was. It was, I think it's the Meta app on your phone. I'm not quite sure which app it is. The article doesn't make it entirely clear. But the point is, what they did was they started listening on localhost, TCP/IP on a local host, and then they could send data there and read data from there, so they can escape the sandbox and bypass the sandbox. And then they put web bugs all over the internet, just like Google did. Double click.
Single individual pixels that
pixel.
Know where you're coming from.
Pixels. Yep.
That sends. Therefore, there's a Facebook cookie on many websites you go to, and that goes to the operating system of Android, and that goes back in. So now they can track everything you do. They can record what you did on a website. They can get financial information from tax filing, medical information from hospital websites, and so on. So they're tracking everything you do. And when the articles came out exposing this, they removed this code. But you can be guaranteed that, just like Google, they're finding 10 other ways to do it.
Yeah.
Because their business model depends on all this tracking. So this is, more the surveillance capitalism, but it is pretty horrible. And this kind of answers a question I've asked people for years. Why do I have 100 apps on my phone? Why don't I just have a browser and go to a different website? And the answer everyone's told me is so they can track you and sell the data. Because you don't benefit anything from having a separate app for every company you use. It could just be a website.
I mean, arguably, they still find ways to track you, given that, Sam, Meta is arguably tracking you at this point for all those websites that you go to, because it's an individual website. And that's how they know that you're surfing for porn, or that you've gone to Amazon and searching for, op amps, and then you get ads from DigiKey and on Facebook for op amps from DigiKey.
Oh, I know you are. Every time I watch YouTube, I get ads for like ethical hacking training courses, and I don't think that's a mistake. They know everything about me, but that is really a huge invasion of your privacy.
There's one thing that they don't know about you, is that you don't really need those courses on ethical hacking.
That's right.
True.
Well, but also I feel like there's one thing they don't know is what I'm prompting an LLM for.
Oh,
right?
No,
if I go to Perplexity, do they know what I'm prompting in ChatGPT or Perplexity if I have a paid account?
Well, if they put one of those bugs on the page, which they probably did to get Google Analytics, Google probably knows, maybe not Meta. And also, remember, if you're a free user, they're training their LLM on your data and echoing back to other people. So there are a lot of privacy risks.
Well, Apple... Right. Did you guys see the story? I didn't add it, but you guys see the story where Apple wants to buy Perplexity?
Yeah.
I didn't.
That would be great, actually, because
I actually think you're right.
Apple's falling behind from lack of a good AI, and if they could just buy Perplexity, they'd leap ahead as having a really good AI.
But also, I feel like of all the big tech companies, Apple sort of cares about your privacy. Like, in context, obviously. Like, I don't explicitly trust Apple. However, I trust them more than the Google, Microsoft, insert other big, tech company here. I trust them more to preserve the privacy, because Perplexity wanted to do that weird thing where they're like, oh, we're going to have a browser so we can track everything you do. I'm like, but the reason I use Perplexity, at least one reason, big reason, is they're not tracking what I do. Like the results are more raw, unfettered results, not based on you tracking me and showing me what you think you want me to see, and or sharing those results with Facebook, Amazon, Instagram, all the other apps, because we all know that other ecosystem is completely screwed. Like I just think about, I think I want a new fishing kayak, and even though I just thought about it, God damn it, fucking Facebook, Amazon, Google, whatever is like, oh, you thought about having a new fishing kayak, Paul. You must want to see a whole bunch of advertisements for new fishing kayaks. And I'm like, how the fuck did you even know that? I didn't even search for anything yet, and you already knew that. Like, you're in my brain already. That's where I feel that we've gotten to the level. But if I prompt an LLM, I'm like, tell me about the latest fishing kayaks. I don't seem to see the advertisement tracking technology catch on to that right now.
I was going to say yet.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's because you're using a paid LLM, or is it just...
me too, Lee, right? That's where my brain was going, yeah.
I mean, and there are various contexts where LLM are constrained. Like, for example, if you're using Copilot that's licensed to your 365 account, and it's not, not a free 365 account, but I think as Larry,
because they're getting money. They don't need to monetize. They don't need to monetize on ads. Like that's where I'm at with I'm not Captain Privacy by any stretch of the imagination, and that's a throwback to, remember Martin McKay?
Yep.
Right, Captain Privacy. I'm not a Captain Privacy kind of person. Like, I want to just use stuff. If it recommends products, I'm like, whatever. However, there are limits here, and if I can have a model where I'm paying, like I want to pay Perplexity, do my searches there. If I'm paying you, you don't need to hook into this other advertising bullshit network that we all know exists.
You used to be able to buy versions of apps you paid to not have the ads.
Yeah.
But I think that the monetary, it's getting the amount of money they get on those ads is getting so high they can't. You wouldn't want to pay it.
They want to double dip. They want to be like,
it's like YouTube Premium. You pay so much a month for YouTube Premium, so you don't have to have ads.
But you still have ads,
right?
No.
So in fact,
well, I mean, all right. Yes, I do have ads when the content creator has put them in.
Right,
and they have
YouTube flags those now. They flag our videos for in advertisements that are in our videos.
And you either have to flag, that either gets flagged, or you have to declare it that it has in advertisement.
Oh, by the way,
and
Sam, that was both Facebook and Instagram had that feature. It's in the one article.
Oh yeah, and also I think Yandex or something. So
yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, what the kids use Facebook to talk to us old farts, but they use Instagram with their peers. So nail them both, and you got better coverage on the feature, better for worse. But
a lot of social networks though are so much of the same content now.
Oh yeah,
like I'm actually kind of like really concerned and frustrated with the content on social networks now.
Yep.
I used to get like a percentage of like entertainment content, which was great, coupled with stuff I was interested in. I talked about the hacking tutorials that I got. Like I want that kind of mix. Maybe there needs to be like a setting where you can have like a slider to kind of set the mix. But like the social networks today are filled with variations of the same
or exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same entertainment. It doesn't matter if I'm watching Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels. I don't do TikTok, right?
Yep.
LinkedIn has its own thing that seems to be kind of separate, although there's Jack Daniel had a post, there's some crap happening with LinkedIn where it's kind of diluting the pool there. But like
I want threads
like threads, and I know Blue Sky is kind of separate, but I want a little bit of entertainment, and I want a lot of educational content in my feed, and we have no control over that. Therefore, the algorithms are just feeding you so much crap now. Like I feel like it's just so much of like what you said, Larry. It's the same crap. It's high percentage AI generated crap. It's the same shtick. Like every social, like there's these waves of social things that it's like a shtick, and I'm like, there's nothing new here for me to see.
The other one too that has been driving me nuts lately is like, all right, so I'm friends with my lawn guy on Facebook. And every time I go to Instagram, it recommends that I follow my lawn guy on Instagram and on Threads. And with one button, you push the same content to all three platforms. Like, how many times did I need to see that this guy cut an amazing lawn on all three platforms? So
7.
Okay, now which platform do I follow him on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, whichever one you want to, right?
All of them.
Exactly. Yeah, not all of them, because I don't need to see the same lawn three times.
It's not. I guess my point is, it's not useful for me. It's useful for other people to monetize on it, and for the platform to monetize on it. It has nothing to do with what I want to see. Which is,
what you guys need is you need an AI agent on your phone that makes all these decisions for you and just fetches the data and doesn't bother you about it.
No, but
he's right. He's right.
But I think you're right. I think you're right. I know you said that kind of tongue in cheek, Sam, but I would love to have AI technology that helped me find the stuff that I'm really interested in. And I would like to tune that to go, like, you know what? Today, I don't want to buy anything. Like, don't show me ads.
Apple Intelligence said they would be that, and they're having trouble rolling it out. But that was what they advertised about 6 months ago. This will be your butler that knows everything about you, that makes you happy by finding the stuff you want, so you don't have to go clicking on all these websites. I don't know that I want it.
I don't want it to know everything about me. I just want to be able to guide and direct it to, like, you know what? Today I want to see content on this, and not I don't want to see the crap content that's on the internet. There's so much crap content on the internet. So I want to see this.
And I will argue some of the algorithms are pretty darn good. Like, I think about YouTube. Like,
but you don't have control over it.
Well, so summertime, right? I don't have the control over it. Then that's the big one. So it's summertime in the Pesci household. Kids aren't going to school. When it was school time, I was up at 6 to get the kids out the door, and now I'm like, I don't have to be to work for 3 hours. What am I going to do? So I subscribe to a bunch of YouTube stuff, and I eat breakfast, and I watch some YouTube stuff.
I do too.
Awesome.
Now,
I want to be productive rather than get my kids to school. I agree. Right. You know what's hilarious? A side note. I told my friend, I'm like, summertime, I'm getting up early, and I want to be productive at work. Yeah. So I'm getting up at 5:36 o'clock. He's like, you're getting up at 5:36 every single day, like specifically. And so my alarm now, 5:30. Just throwing that out there, is set for 5:36 every day. And every day I think of my friend Shane, who made the joke. And as a joke, I get up at 5:36 every day. So if you want to message me or text me at 5:37, I'm up.
Done.
I'm done. 5:35, I'm not up yet, but 5:36
done
on the dot. I'm in.
But summertime, so I don't have to be up to get the kids to school. But I get up at 7, 2 hours before I have to go to work. Why? So I can have breakfast. I can watch something on YouTube University, and learn. And like, the algorithm has gotten me trained that I'll watch something from my subscriptions. Then some of the next suggestions are like, because you watched Joey Does Tech repair this thing, we've got like these 7 other videos that you might want to watch. And I'm like, I'm finding a whole bunch of really
YouTube is doing a good job, because I want to see some 3D printing stuff. I want to see some Raspberry Pi stuff. I want to see some hardware hacking stuff. There's not a lot of great like tech on like hacking, regular hacking stuff. There isn't. It's mostly hardware kind of stuff, because I think that lends itself to video. But like, I want to see that kind of stuff. So,
and Apple already knows everything about you. They know all the videos you've seen. They know what time you do everything. They know your physical location. If you have an iPhone, they already have enough data to really help you if they get this working.
Well, so does Google.
Yeah,
100%.
If you have Android, yes.
So I was looking at the Access Apple Intelligent one, and I was just like, but I don't want you helping me with that.
You know what though?
But you're right. They probably already have enough metadata. I'm splitting hairs.
But Apple,
they have the data, but they don't have a good enough AI. That's the problem. They have enough data. They need to have better AI. Maybe Perplexity would be the answer.
You guys got to hear this. Apple has new features. My story number 11.
Wi-Fi features.
Specifically Wi-Fi features, and there are 2. And I tell you what, my question was what could go wrong? Yeah. And my brain was running wild on all the shit that could go wrong with these new features. They haven't rolled them out yet, but someone, I don't know if they reverse engineered or saw in a developer preview that they were going to implement 2 features. So one was a feature that would sync captive Wi-Fi network sign-in information across iPhone, iPad, and Mac. This means if you're asked to fill out a web form on one Apple device before connecting to a public Wi-Fi network at a hotel, airport, or coffee shop, that information would automatically be shared with your other Apple devices. Now, before you comment on that, you got to see the second feature, which is Apple's making a Wi-Fi aware framework available to developers, allowing for App Store apps to offer peer-to-peer connections between Wi-Fi devices without an internet connection or access point. Wi-Fi Aware will allow for third-party apps to offer new built-in features for high-speed file transfers, media streaming, screen sharing, and more.
So they're bringing back ad hoc Wi-Fi networks.
It's like the second one is ad hoc.
What's old is new. What's old is new again.
Yeah, the one is an extension of, because right now you can, if you're in each other's contact list, you can easily share the Wi-Fi password for conventional Wi-Fi. So adding the captive portal, weird but not surprising. It's also nice when you can just click to get your other devices on. You have to enter the freaking password again.
And the second one is just AirDrop. We already have that,
right?
AirDrop and AirPlay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so they updated AirDrop. What was it, last year, where you start a connection over Bluetooth and then it transitions to Wi-Fi, and then if you separate the phones, it goes over the internet, right? Like so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Remember Bump?
So do you guys know what that was? You know what that's called? It's called Bluetooth 3 or Bluetooth Amp.
Huh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, is that what starts on Bluetooth but then goes over the internet?
Well, so Bluetooth Classic is Bluetooth 1 and 2, and that's the stuff we've grown up to know and love. Bluetooth Low Energy is Bluetooth 4, and arguably Bluetooth 5 in backwards compatibility mode. But where's Bluetooth 3? Bluetooth 3 is one of those ones that you never really ever hear about, because what ended up happening,
the redheaded stepchild of Bluetooth.
Because no one really ever used it, because we had other ways of doing this type of stuff, and it also broke the way you actually used your device. Bluetooth 3 or Bluetooth AMP, what stands for alternate MAC and physical layer. So what happens? You connect two devices over Bluetooth Classic, and like, hey, Bluetooth Classic is 2.1 meg per second. I want to stream this HD video. Needs more than 2.1 meg per second. How can we broker a connection to have some high-speed bandwidth? We both have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll stand up Wi-Fi network, negotiate, do it over Wi-Fi. Great.
Do it over Bluetooth.
The problem is that when you do, instead of doing it over Bluetooth, you negotiate Wi-Fi setup between the two devices, build their own Wi-Fi network, do that high-speed data exchange over Wi-Fi, which breaks the Wi-Fi that you were in use for the other stuff. So
because there's only one radio on the iPhone.
Yeah, you can only be connected to one network at a time.
So it basically takes your Wi-Fi connection to your access point, giving you internet.
And sends
an ad hoc network,
and sends it to your TV effectively.
Yeah, right.
And so then when you're done, it goes back to using Bluetooth, and your Wi-Fi goes and back does its own thing. Now, AMP was only originally alternate MAC and physical layer. You could define any alternate MAC and physical layer, but it was only ever implemented for Wi-Fi.
Right. Okay.
So there's no reason why you couldn't do an alternate MAC and physical layer to potentially direct that out to other technologies such as cellular for internet and those types of things. What's old is new again.
I just think it's an increasing attack surface. Increasing attack surface.
And if you're interested in these type of Wi-Fi things, you should take SANS 617 with either James or myself, because we talk about Bluetooth AMP and Claris.
Just listening to Larry, I want to take SANS. What is the number?
617.
617. The wireless.
It's still called 617.
Yeah.
Which is in 2005. Was that the same number?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Same number. Same SANS class. But different now.
Way different. Go ahead.
Way different now from 2005. Yeah. By the way, history of the podcast, Larry and I were in the original 617 class in 2005 learning about Wi-Fi attacks and technology.
And I still tell some of those stories because we talk about Kismet filtering in class.
Yep.
And do you remember what happened during that class?
There was a lot of it. Dude, there was so many shenanigans.
Josh gave us heads up as the author of that class about the mini-ish CTF, where he hid access points in the hotel.
Does he still talk about the way we fucked that up?
No, I still talk about the way because he told us that the access points were going to be called SANS Rogue 01. And what did we do? We did the font collision attack. We took a laptop, threw it in my backpack, and stood up an access point called SANS Rogue SANS Rogue with a 0 in Rogue instead of an O.
We tried to hack the other participants.
So basically, they went font collision attack, but we didn't filter out the MAC address of our false access point.
So we're following ourselves around.
We followed ourselves around that hotel, and so did everyone else. because
everyone was following us.
That was in the hotel in
hilarious.
LA with the rotating bar.
Yep.
Where they did was a part of Predator or one of the
No,
movies?
it was
with the little little
it was
pods.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that was not Total Recall. No, the other one.
In any case,
True Lies.
So, Joe, in the hotel with the open center with all those little pods, it kind of looks like the Senate in Star Wars, and like we're wandering all over this hotel, like circling around, chasing my backpack around, and we turn around, there's like 5 other people like chasing my backpack,
right?
Chasing that we were
That's
also chasing,
like the Huey, like the thing that HD Moore said about the OT.
Yep.
It's in your pocket.
I still tell that story every once in a while about doing Mac
you know
filtering.
what's funny though? My 9-year-old, I was like, "You want to watch Star Wars?" And it was around Father's Day, and he's like, "Dad, it's Father's Day. It's fine. I'll watch Star Wars with you again." Yeah.
Oh.
He's like, I'm like, "Let's watch the Phantom Menace." He's like, "Oh," he's like, "All right, cool." And then we were watching the Phantom Menace. He's like, "That's pretty awesome. Like, can we just keep watching like Attack of the Clones?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" Like the greatest like moment in my life recently was when my son was like, "Dad, can we go upstairs and like go to bed and then like watch Star Wars?" I'm like, "Hell yes!"
Oh,
it is like
right
yes,
there,
like
buddy.
celebration. Like yes, we can watch Star Wars together.
The
Child
latest one-
abuse.
Yeah,
Right? I know it is.
the latest.
You will like Star Wars whether you like it or not. Okay.
I won't do it, Dad. I'll never do it.
In similar sort of proud.
And you know what the ironic part is? My youngest son name is Luke.
I don't think that. I don't think that's a irony there at all.
It's
no,
not
yeah, no.
Don't
he's
worry.
Need counseling.
It's not.
basically.
It's not a fluke.
No, it's
So proud. Same thing, Paul. Proud dad moment. Our youngest, 12 years old, about once a week says, "Dad, can we play a couple games of chess?"
Hell yeah.
yeah. Dude, there are these moments. Like my middle son is like,
I don't really have time right now, but yes.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. Like my middle son, like, "Dad, can we buy a 3D printer?" I'm like, "Hell yeah! I've been waiting my whole life for you to ask me that fucking question." Like, what the fuck? Let's do it.
So, Larry, what you need is like what my grandfather did. He was an architect, worked at home. He played chess to relax, but he played chess during the lunch break, and he played it fast and good. So you had to be able to play a game in like 15, 20
like
minutes.
That is what I love to do. Is I love to play 3-minute speed chess. So
Speaking of 3 minutes,
total
hold on.
6-minute game.
We're running short on time. Bill, I want to keep my story number 12. Keeling Ransomware Gang now offers a call lawyer feature to pressure victims. This is your world right now.
I saw that.
Doing incident response in your awesome company, helping people. I just thought this was so weird. This was, I believe, Cyber Reason Report that was like a notable feature is the call lawyer function, which provides legal consultation to increase pressure during ransom negotiations. But like, how does this work? I don't understand how this actually works in practice. Like, I'm the victim of ransomware. I got this thing. They're recommending I call my lawyer.
Not your lawyer.
Do they recommend like one of their lawyers, like their lawyer to like advise?
Yeah.
Like you can't afford a lawyer in your ransomware, so therefore one has been appointed.
So the malware authors will appoint one
like,
for you.
Yeah, so like, what is this? Some Russian guy that's a lawyer that's like, you need to pay the ransom.
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Take me to dinner first, Bing Bong.
I know, right?
You can't say that, Larry. You can't say those things. Like, but I don't. So just to be
It says our legal team will contact you.
yeah. So I have not worked.
But this is to your point, Mandy, the ransomware author's legal team is the lawyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is weird.
Well, I mean, you also have to understand a lot of the, so just to be very clear, I have not worked a case against this particular ransomware group. I wish someday I may, and we'll laugh about it. But
you sound like you really want to.
For
by
sure.
The way.
Yeah.
If you're a victim of Keeling ransomware, please
give me a call.
Bill.
We'll do it. We'll do it. What's it called when lawyers do it?
Pro bono. You can do it pro bono.
Call their lawyer and ask them what it's called.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but
it's pro bono. You don't have to call their lawyer. It's pro
so what we
bono,
should do is
which means you're giving legal advice for free.
We should go look and see what who their victims have been, because probably it's they're going after small businesses that don't know what to do, right? And so this is probably just a exactly what you guys said. Just
it's an AI bot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm your lawyer right now.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is, lawyers are not going to recommend that you pay or that you do any of those things. It's people that actually, it's more of the people like me that, hey, on the back end, like, hey, there are certain situations where we're going to need to do this, right? So it'd be interesting.
Bill, but hold on. I just want to dial in on what you just said.
Yeah.
It's not about having you need a lawyer. Like, look, to be successful in life, this is Paul's advice. A couple of key things you need. One, you need a great attorney.
Yeah.
And it may be multiple great attorneys in different aspects. Like, you need a great business attorney and you need a great accountant, right? To be successful in business is some of my advice. When you get into ransomware, though, you need someone who has experience negotiating ransoms, typically not your lawyer, not your accountant.
Oh, no.
That can do that for you, right? Like Jake, Malware Jake, one of the best in our field that has so much experience. I remember doing webinars with Jake back in the day. Like, he has a ton of experience in negotiating ransom. You want someone who has been in that situation before to navigate those waters. But also, like, you need that person, but also a good attorney and a good accountant. Yeah, different people,
and not
different people,
and not the one recommended by the malware author.
Not the attorney recommended by the ransomware operators.
They have a vested interest, I suspect.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, so
shall we wrap it?
Real quick, so I'm just pulling, so it looks like they've
closing thoughts, Bill.
I've pulled a lot of their list of that ransomware groups, and it looks like they are
Keeling. Yeah, Keeling's a big one.
It looks like they've gone after some law offices. Looks like some companies in Thailand.
Ironic.
Anyway,
you work for a law office, but use our lawyer, not your lawyer.
So see, what they did is they hacked the law office. And this is what they do for the ransom. They have to provide legal service to the criminals.
Oh, could be that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
that is evil.
Yeah,
that's what Donald Trump did to some law firms a while ago.
Wow. In any case, I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah,
let's wrap. Hey, thanks everyone for listening and watching to this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. Larry, take us out.
Over and it's hot in here.
Take off all your clothes.
Too hot. I want to take my clothes off.